paper.
Hi, I'm Miss Lamke, and we are going to be looking at the distances between our planets using a scale model. And today we're going to be using toilet paper to create that scale model. On this model, every inch represents 7,710,000 miles. So that means like from here to here, 7,710,000 miles, 7,710,000 miles, so on and so forth, right? So now we're starting to think about how far away these planets are from the sun. Talk amongst your groups really quickly. Where do you think every other planet is in that distance? Go.
Earth, Mars. I feel like it's more. Sometimes it's hard to show up on paper.
Okay, now you guys are starting to think about that scale, right? Because that scale is 7,710,000 miles. So initially you guys were probably like, oh, it's maybe 100,000 miles away. But now that scale is getting bigger and bigger. So when we go out there, you and your group mates are going to get a piece of tape. And I'm gonna give you all a marker as well. What you are going to do is you're gonna think how far away is Pluto with our door being the sun, okay? From then, you all are going to mark the other 8 planets in our solar system, starting with Mercury, okay? So if you put Pluto really, really far away, you gotta think about, well, where are all those other planets going to line up? I want you and your group to kind of figure out where do you think Pluto is going to be. I'm going to give each team a roll of toilet paper. The first square is going to be the sun, and you're gonna start it right here on this black line, okay? As you keep going down, you're gonna figure out, okay, where's Mercury? Then you're gonna stop and you're gonna draw Mercury and label it. I'm going to give you a key to help you out. See if your predictions were a little off or pretty close. There you go. As you draw your planets, markers are the easiest to use, but be careful that you don't rip one. See what I did there? Note that the planet drawings are not to scale. On this scale, the planets would be very, very small, too small for us to draw. Teachers, you can adapt this activity to include math by only giving students the distances to the planets. Then have them calculate the number of squares of toilet paper based on the distance to Mercury being 1 square. Earth is 2.5. Mars is 3. Then you get all the way up to Jupiter and it's 12 squares out. Quietly and carefully come back into the room, back to your spot, and then we're gonna discuss some things. How was your prediction different or similar to what you actually got? Alice, what did your group find?
It was very far off.
Very far off. Is there anything that you know that is in our solar system that was missing from your model? Cheyenne? The moons, right? We know that not just Earth has moons, but a whole bunch of other planets have moons, right? One last thing I want to leave you guys with. How would our model change if we maybe did this with another galaxy? Would we need a lot more toilet paper or the same amount? Wes?
We're gonna need a lot more.
That's a lot of toilet paper.
Let's head out beyond our solar system.
Voyager 1, which took these images, was launched in 1977. It is the farthest human-made object away from Earth. Right now, it is almost 15 billion miles away. That's a long way, but we're going to explore much larger distances.
To give you an idea of the scale of these things, here's an image of NGC 2336. It is the quintessential galaxy photo taken by the Hubble Space Telescope. We've added a banana for scale. Just kidding. This galaxy is huge. It is 200,000 light years across and is located approximately 100 million light years away from Earth. At this distance, it's hard to see individual stars, much less a banana.
Beyond our solar system, if we want to measure things, we don't measure in miles, but in light years. That's the distance that light travels in 1 year, or 186,000 miles per second. That translates to 5.88 trillion miles per year. When we talk about 1 light year, we're talking about almost 6 trillion miles. And around these parts, we're talking about a lot of light years.
The closest star to us, besides our Sun, is Proxima Centauri, which is 4.2 light years away. Remember, that's over 24 trillion miles.
When you look into the night sky, you see stars of different brightnesses. That doesn't mean one is closer than the other. Some stars are huge, others are smaller, and different stars are different brightnesses. Take a pretty familiar constellation, Orion.
Here you see the constellation as it's seen from Earth. But remember, space is three-dimensional. The star on the left of Orion's belt is about 800 light years away. The star in the middle of the belt is about 1,300 light years away. And the star at the right side of the belt is about 900 light years away. Yet from Earth, they all appear to have the same brightness.
Some of the stars in the universe are amazingly large as well. The biggest star in the universe that we know of is 1,700 times larger than the radius of the Sun. 5 billion of our suns could fit inside it. We're going to need a bigger bowl, bigger fish bowl.
We've given you a way to compare the sizes of the planets.
And we've given you a way to create a scale model of the distance between the planets.
What if we took those two and combined them into one scale model?
Remember, we use scale models to help us understand really large numbers, and the sizes and the distances are so massive that it's pretty hard to put them together.
But fret not. There are scale models of the solar system all around the country.
There are plenty of creative scale models to be found across the United States and around the world. Doing a simple online search can point you in the right direction.
Want to tour the solar system in a day? Silas Education is building a scale model of the solar system in Washington State. It starts with the solar arches, a 40-foot sculpture of the sun designed to cast shadows which tell the story of the predictable path of the sun over the course of a year, and will have markers for each of the planets.
If you're looking for some unusual models, there's the Flag Solar System, where each flag represents a planet at Green Bank Observatory in West Virginia. There's the Distance to Scale model made of fiberglass planets on light poles in Traverse City, Michigan. There are plenty of walkable models. In St. Louis, there's the Del Mar Loop Planet Walk. You can find the sun station right outside the Moonrise Hotel. Check off each planet signpost until you find Neptune, located about a half a mile from the sun.
There are several Voyage solar systems. These walkable models feature scaled mock-ups of the sun and planets, and are about 1 to 10 billionth scale. They can be found in Kansas City, Missouri, Space Center Houston, and Corpus Christi, Texas, and will be returning to the National Mall in Washington, D.C.
But if you don't have the time or energy to walk, there's the Solar System Lawn model at the Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles, California. In this model, the planet's orbits are properly scaled around the sun. Each foot in this model is roughly equal to 20 million miles in our solar system. Do a search. Can you find a model in your hometown? We've looked at scale models. We've looked at the size of our planet, the distance between the Earth and the Moon, the size of the planets in our solar system, and the distance between them.
We've also looked at sizes outside our solar system. Where can you find or make your own scale models?
Map your neighborhood. Walk around your neighborhood and make a map. Think about what scale you'll use.
Build a scale model. You can make one yourself, or you can buy one. Notice the scale.
Think about how scale models are used in real life. The Navy uses a scale model to move planes around on an aircraft carrier called a Ouija board.
A lot of museums use scale models called dioramas, which allow them to represent scenes with three-dimensional figures. The Smithsonian's National Museum of Natural History did some with dinosaurs.
And there's an entire museum in Gettysburg of dioramas of famous Civil War battles. The interesting thing about this museum is that all the soldiers are cats.
The cats are not to scale, but boy are they cute. Do you have a scale model at your house or in your classroom? Have you found one at a museum? We'd love to know about it down in the comments section.
And if you like this episode of STEM in 30, be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter and subscribe to the National Air and Space Museum's YouTube channel.
And teachers, be sure to check out the Teacher Tips document with resources on how to use this episode in your classroom.
Thanks for watching. Scale is the ratio between the size of a given original object and a new object, which is a representation, but of a different size. But what if you wanted to calculate?
I didn't like mine anyway.
Okay. Would you stop it? Leave them alone. Stop.
His fingers?
Yes.
It's 8 o'clock and Beth has crossed over the bridge to...
Stop touching things. Just stop it. Keep your hands to yourself. Now I can't remember what I'm supposed to say.
Size of the Earth.
To show how big the Earth is in comparison to the sun.
Why do you get to touch them?
Because someone is more responsible than how. No, we can just use this. If I spread my arms out like this is the size of the sun, which means the size of the Earth would be about.
One more time. One more time.
Ow.
I'm built different. And our solar system. Just go. Get on out. Leave. Please. Yeah.
Let's start the meeting with a good night's sleep. Are you willing to give up a good night's sleep? Who's willing to give up a good night's sleep? Thank you, sir, for giving up a good night's sleep. Who will pay with their ability to concentrate? Thank you, sir, for parting with your ability to concentrate. Who's willing to pay with their peace of mind? Who will pay with their peace of mind, peace of mind, peace of mind, peace of mind? Who will offer up their peace of mind? Thank you, young lady, for giving up your peace of mind. Going once, going twice, sold.
What's the price of a pack of cigarettes? Your mental health. Cigarette cravings can lead to anxiety.
We come from a long line of farmers, and there's a sense of pride with being part of these multi-generational businesses. But there's also a significant amount of pressure. My senior year of high school, my dad made the decision that this world no longer needed him in it. I don't know if he was overwhelmed by the bills and checks that weren't going to be coming in because of the strawberries dying off, but it breaks my heart that my dad made a permanent decision for a temporary issue. Don't feel like you have to go through it alone.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health, because what's a farm without a farmer?
In the mornings, that's my time. Watching the sun come up, I can have a cup of coffee and exercise if I want to. It helps me start the day with a sense of gratitude.
Yay!
Every day is a new opportunity. Don't forget to check in on yourself. Love, your mind.
Got it.
They didn't tell me I was gonna have to work.
You guys all set?
All set?
Yep, we're all set.
We're all set, Brian.
Okay, all right. Stand by. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the July 15th, 2024 meeting of the Long Meadow Select Board. This is Select Board Chair, Vineet Hemavati. I'll be confirming that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Dan Zwerko.
Here.
Andrew Lamb.
Here.
Mark Gold.
Here.
Josh Levine.
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Lynn Simmons.
Here.
Mike Barbieri.
Here.
This open meeting of the Long Meadow Select Board is convened in person and via Zoom webinar as posted on the agenda and town's website, identifying how the public may join. There is no chat or Q&A function. All the materials for this meeting are available on the agenda posted on longmeadowma.gov. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. This meeting will feature resident comments. For residents attending the meeting in person, please raise your hand when we get to the comment section of the meeting, and I will call on you to approach the microphone. For residents participating in the meeting via Zoom webinar format, please use the raise hand icon at the bottom of the screen. The meeting moderator will promote you to panelist, unmute you, and give you permission to speak. If you join the webinar by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. Residents who wish to speak will identify their names and addresses only. Each individual is afforded 3 minutes for comments. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. If anyone in attendance is recording this meeting, please announce yourself now. Nobody? All right. We will now begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll begin with Select Board announcements. Board and committee vacancies. Applications are open to serve on appointed Long Meadow boards, committees, and commissions. Interviews will be held at the Select Board regular meetings in July and August. To learn more about the roles and responsibilities of the committees and to fill out an application, online application, please visit longmeadowma.gov/committee vacancies. The town of Long Meadow is looking for a few volunteer citizen scientists to help us collect water quality samples at Cooley Brook once a week this summer. Led by the Connecticut River Conservancy, this is a fun way to get outside and contribute to a healthy Cooley Brook and Connecticut River. For additional information, please visit longmeadowma.gov/civic alert. The fall special town meeting is set for Tuesday, November 12th at 7 p.m. at the Long Meadow High School Gymnasium. Citizen petition articles are due in the Select Board's office no later than 12 p.m. on Friday, September 27th. In order for a petition to be guaranteed placement on the special town meeting warrant, 100 names, signatures, addresses of registered town voters are required and must be certified by the town clerk. You can find forms, instructions, and additional information at longmeadowma.gov/town meeting. All right, we will now move into resident comments. Obviously, I'm not in the room, but if there's folks in the room that want to make a resident comment, you can step up to the microphone and start with your name and address, and I'll give you 3 minutes here.
Tom Shea, 81 Green Meadow Drive. My analysis is an attachment to the agenda. I disagree with the stated intent that for the period April through June, the fourth quarter of 2024, that water and sewer rates be increased by 21% and 12% over the third quarter 24 rates and previously approved rates.
That's not 3 minutes.
Okay, my analysis has been peer-reviewed by 3 others with a lot of initials after their name and 160 years of accounting and finance. Common sense approach is that the usage period of April to June 24 is fiscal 2024 fourth quarter. Fiscal 24 rates per unit were approved by the Select Board at its meeting of June 5th, 2023. The rates were based on the fiscal 24 assessment by the Springfield Water and Sewer Commission and the fiscal 24 approved budget at the May 9th town meeting. Springfield bills Long Meadow monthly for water and sewer based on its fiscal 24 assessment that is trued up 9 months after year end, which I believe you'll hear more about later. In the handout I gave you, you'll notice that April and May are billed at fiscal 24 rates. June is billed at fiscal 25, which I imagine you can talk to Springfield Water and Sewer. That's probably part of the true-up. There's no logical or rational basis to change the rates already approved for the fourth quarter of 24. Select Board vote minutes. Ms. Simmons recently referenced a board meeting of July 2022 that policy supported your intent to raise the rates. That was done for expediency in 2022. There was a small difference. That was then, this is now. 22% and 12% for the fourth quarter of 24 are not small, and your policy is not justified. Accounting and finance. The water and sewer enterprise funds are on the accrual method of accounting per the footnotes. Accounting and finance. The accrual method of accounting requires revenue to be recognized when earned and expenses to be recorded when earned. The water and sewer usage for April through June is the fourth quarter of 2024. The costs are billed by the Springfield Water and Sewer Commission based on 24 rates. Therefore, the Long Meadow bills and revenue for April through June should be at the already approved 24 rates, not the increased rates. That will match the expenses incurred by Long Meadow for its own account and the assessment by Springfield. That is the matching concept of accounting. In terms of budgeting, the rates were set.
All right, Tom, that's the 3 minutes there. Thank
Okay,
you.
can I just do one sentence summary, please?
If you can fit in like 10 or 15 seconds.
I will. For the billing period of April through June, you should be charging $376 for water, $313 for sewer. The rates were approved by the Select Board in fiscal 24 on May 29th, 2023. Any other rates are not justified, and I believe the taxpayers would be outraged. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, thank you, Tom. Anyone else with the resident comments?
Do not see anyone.
No? Okay. All right, so we will now move into interviews for board and committees. I think first on the list, we've got Dave Marinelli seeking a reappointment to the Community Preservation Commission. Is Dave there?
I believe Dave is on the Zoom. I'm moving him in now.
Okay.
I think you might have got the wrong one.
Never mind, I moved the wrong Dave in.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening.
So you are seeking a reappointment to the Community Preservation Commission. Obviously, I think folks are familiar with you and your work. So if you could just start off with just your name and address for the record, and then just kind of tell us why you're seeking a reappointment.
Yeah, sure. I'm Dave Marinelli. I live at 9 Overbrook Lane. I've been on the CPC for the last 3 years as an at-large member, and I've found the work interesting and rewarding, and I would like to be able to continue in that role. I think it's a good committee that deliberates and reviews applications and tries to coordinate with other government bodies. We look forward to improving and strengthening some of those relationships over time. And I think it's a great committee that has a lot of potential to help the town move forward.
Great, thank you. Anyone on the select board have any questions or comments for Dave? All right. Well, I don't see anyone's hands, but Dave, thanks for joining us, and we'll be voting on your appointment at our next meeting.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. All right, next, we're going to have the two Board of Health folks come up at the same time. We've got Robert Bayevsky and Richard Steingart seeking reappointment to the Board of Health.
Hi.
All right, thank you both. Thank you both for joining us. If you could just start off with just your name, address, and then just tell us a little bit about why you're seeking reappointment.
Yep, Robert Bayevsky, 134 Tanglewood Drive, and I have been on the Board of Health since 2006. I was a non-voting member for 6 years and a voting member and ultimately the chair for the last 10 years or so. It has been at times a very exciting committee. I am an emergency medicine physician. I am well versed in the areas of disaster and a lot of epidemiology and issues that are directly relevant to the Board of Health. And I think I can continue to contribute on the board and will continue hopefully to serve as its chair.
My name is Richard Steingart. I live at 221 Greenacre Avenue. I too am a physician at hematology oncology at Bay State. I have been on the board for, I think, at least 3 decades with Beverly and Bobby Rappaport. And I remember him coming on board. We really worked well as a team. COVID really bonded us together. We were having meetings every month, every other month. We got the town through that. And there was a lot of challenges here in the high school and in all the schools. I have a lot of expertise in terms of just being on the board and thinking with these folks that are excellent on the board and trying to do my due diligence to the community. And what happened is last year there must have been an email and I must have deleted it where it was to apply again, and wow, so the application disappeared. I've been asking to please send me another application. I got one in April or maybe in March, and here we are now. So thank you for letting me apply again.
Great, thank you. And there are 2 different types of terms available right now. Do we have clarity on who's applying for which term?
I'm looking for the 30-year term. No, I'm looking for, I think there's a 3-year term. That's what I've been applying to every time. I believe that's the one that I'm applying for.
And I'm looking to reapply for the 3-year term as well.
He's the chief, I'm the vice chief of the Board of Health.
We'll sort it out.
We were.
Beneath, it's possible that there's a typo on that says there's one for the associate, one for the regular term, but I'll clarify when I look at the spreadsheet.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, great. Does anyone on the select board have any questions for these 2 folks? Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, thanks. I'd like an answer, I guess, from both of you. So years and years ago, one of the responsibilities of the Board of Health was to administer the tobacco settlement. And I thought it went pretty well in the town of Longmeadow. What's coming up is the oxycodone potential settlement, which, if it's ever settled, kind of thing. And so, and I know that, I guess what my question for each of you would be, do you have any thoughts of how we might utilize those funds within the town?
Yeah, Finn's been very active. He's been on top of that as long as, hopefully we continue to get the funds, or the funds will make it their way here. I know the state's looking to claw back, or the federal government's looking to claw back some of that drug money. But the money so far has been spent in part on vape detectors. They've been used through the high school. I believe they've put them also down to the middle school. They've been very effective. There's a program in place to continue using those funds for that, and then the rest have not. The rest of the funds still sits there, and it's only $140,000, I'm going to say, in that ballpark for funding that's available to use on various projects.
Thank you. Any comments, Dr. Steingart?
So I would agree with that. I mean, this hasn't been brought up to the board, at least the last meeting that I was at, for a while. So I think I need to personally listen to all the pros and cons and where the money would go, and then have a vote, and then have Finn, give us some more information. So I would wait for more information before giving an opinion.
Thanks.
Great, thank you. Anyone else with questions?
Vineet?
Yes, go ahead, Dan.
Thanks. I didn't have a question. I just wanted to commend everyone for your work, especially during COVID. If there were two committees that I would not want to be on, and I certainly could not be on Board of Health, by the way, with your qualifications, but also school committee as well, and just what you did for the community during that time. I mean, it was incredible. So I just thank you.
Great. Yeah, well said, Dan. Anyone else? All right. Thank you both for joining us tonight, and we'll vote on your appointment at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we've got two folks for the Cultural Council, Andrea Schultz and Thea Katsunakis.
Thea is here and Andrea is on the Zoom. I'm going to move her in now.
Okay, great. Thank you. So thank you for joining us, Thea. You can, if you want to go ahead and get started by telling us your name, address, and why you're seeking reappointment to the Cultural Council.
My name is Thea Katsunakis. I live at 582 Williams Street, and this would be my third term if I get approved. I am a retired vice president from Bank of America, where I was a relationship manager on hundreds of not-for-profit accounts, which included grant making and scholarship accounts. And I enjoy doing volunteer work, and because this is part of my background, I enjoy doing the Long Meadow Cultural Council. I was a former board member at Bay Path University, and I'm an emeritus member of the Community Foundation of Western Mass, the Education Committee, and I was on the board of Storrs Library and Bay State Wing Hospital. And I enjoy working with the Cultural Council.
Great, thank you so much. And Andrea, if you want to just start off by telling us your name, address, and why you're seeking reappointment.
Hi, good evening. My name is Andrea Schultz. I live at 669 Converse Street. And I'm seeking another term because, like Thea said, I really enjoy the work that we do there. We get to, sort of like evaluate the different programs that we can encourage to come into the town, and it's really good to not only, participate, but to know that you've been a part of ensuring that some of those activities come in and we get to experience them. So, that's really fulfilling to me. It's like one of the ways as a little bit of an introvert that I get to meet a small group of people, work closely with them, and really give something back to my community. I'm a veteran, and again, just one of the ways that I can serve. And so that's, one of the reasons I'm seeking a reappointment.
Great, thank you so much. Any questions from the board?
Can I just say one more thing? I'm secretary of the Long Meadow Cultural Council, also doing the minutes.
Great, thank you. All right, if I don't see any hands, then thank you both for joining us tonight, and we'll be voting on your appointment at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right, next we've got two folks seeking reappointment or appointments and reappointment to DEI committee. Chili Salazar seeking reappointment, and Edward Delgazo seeking appointment. Thank you for joining us, and just similarly to the folks we've interviewed before, if you all can start with your name, address, and tell us why you're seeking appointment.
Check the front first. I'm Ed Delgazo. I'm at 11 Tabor Crossing. I was first involved with DEI about 10 years ago. I worked for one of the big four accounting firms. I was in charge of leadership development. We used to develop training programs, and I want to make sure that my group, I had 5 people working for me, make sure that all the TED Talks, all the YouTube, all the different things reflected a diverse group of individuals. We didn't do the training ourselves. We had to pick other people to train. So again, we had to reach out, make sure we had the partners, we had senior managers that really also reflect that. And then I also taught adjunct at the same time. And when DEI came to the university, I was already ahead of the game. I actually helped a lot of other individuals, make sure, again, that their training really reflect the diversity that was out there and everything. It's something I strongly believe in.
Good evening, my name is Chili Salazar. I am at 50 Edgewood Avenue. The reason why I want to seek reappointment, I've been on DEI now since November, so just over 6 months. Prior to that, I was and still remain an active member of LARC. I am a board member of the East of the River Chamber. My professional background is I'm in the nonprofit sector. I've been leading different nonprofits in the Boston region for over 2 decades now. So for better or worse, I've really gotten a chance to understand and see the injustices that occur all around us. I don't think any of us need to look very far to realize that we live in a world where there is a lot of divisiveness. So as a parent of a 10-year-old, and being a proud Longmeadow resident for 6 years, I am a true believer that if I want my son to grow up in a community and my neighbor's children to grow up in this wonderful community where they all feel welcome regardless of their background or circumstances, that we need to do something about that. I can't just be a mom that sits and hopes and wishes that it's going to be that way. I think we all have to live with much more intent and purpose in all the things that we wish for in life. So I am here because I want to take a proactive approach to activate our community and engage our young people as well, because I am also a firm believer that the young people are the strength of our future economy and the strength of the backbone of all that we hope for. So.
Great, thank you. Yeah, Chili, I feel like you were just here talking to us about why you should be on DEI. So
yes, I feel the same. It was November. We had snow outside.
All right, is that Josh, I think, with your hand up?
Chili, I know you know this, and I would tell you in the hopes you get appointed. One of the things when we set up the DEI committee, one of the things DEI committee needs to do is come report to the select board and work with us, and that hasn't happened yet. I know I've met with the committee and have stressed this, and it needs to be more collaborative. So I would just, if you are reappointed or appointed, I would encourage you to take that back, because I know I've had individual conversations. I said it to the committee, but we'd love to hear from you and to collaborate on things that you think we can do as a select board and as a town, because there's different buckets that we are trying to fill in the town. The schools doing work, the town is doing work, but the town as a whole, I mean the town government, the town as a whole can do more, and so I hope we can work together on that. So I'd encourage you to go and say, hey, let's go back to the select board. But thank you for your interest and for your service.
Great, thanks. Anyone else? Oh, sorry.
Well said, Josh. Really important issue, and I thank both of you for serving and previously serving on the committee. To kind of what Josh was saying, I was sitting here thinking, what can the select board do to be more proactive rather than reactive? And I think you have a board that wants to, be more involved in DEI efforts moving forward. So to Josh's point, I think Josh is the liaison and does a good job and lets us know of what's going on. But I think it'd be great to hear more. You have a board that wants to, help make a positive difference. So.
Great, thanks. Anyone else? All right, thank you both for joining us, and we'll vote on your appointment at our next meeting.
Okay.
Great, okay, so now we're actually going to pause our interviews because we do have to open up or go into a public meeting at 7:30 for the liquor license request. So the folks that are requesting a liquor license, if you could come up to the microphone.
Need a motion, right?
Yeah.
Good evening. My name is...
Wait, sorry, 1 second, please. Vineet, I move that we enter into a public hearing to consider the liquor license application for Royal Spice Indian Cuisine, and the entity is Royal Spice, Inc.
Second.
So we have to do a roll call vote because we have a member on Zoom. So, Mr. Hamavathy?
Yes.
Mr. Gold?
Yes.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
Mr. Swerko?
Yes.
Mr. Levine?
Yes.
All right, so now you can go ahead and get started and introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about why you guys have put in this request and a little bit about the business.
Certainly. So my name is Peter Burdun. I'm an attorney with offices in New Haven, Connecticut, and I represent Royal Spice, Inc. With me are two of the team members. We have Samjith Parath and Pramod Warrior. Three of the other team members unfortunately could not be here tonight, but we can provide a summary of their qualifications for the board. The premises for which a liquor license is being sought is 837B Williams Street. It's
827.
827B Williams Street. It's approximately 1,300 square feet, a little bit less than 1,300 square feet. On a single floor premises, it will be able to seat approximately 40 persons. It's located in Zone B. It's a permitted use. As you, I'm sure, are very familiar with the area, it's within a shopping center that contains a UPS store, Jersey Mike's, a TD Bank. Across the street, there is a Big Y gas station, and further across the street, the Long Meadow shops with various retail and other restaurant uses as well. Among the management team, there is 44 years of collective experience in the hotel and restaurant industry. And with Mr. Warrior, there's an additional 36 years of experience in the restaurant and hotel industry. All of the servers will be TIPS trained. Mr. Warrior himself is, in fact, TIPS certified. On all the food staff will be ServSafe certified as well. The proposed plan is to provide for an Indian food style restaurant with sit-down dining and alcoholic beverages. The reason for establishing it here in Long Meadows, there appears to be a need in terms of that food cuisine here in your community, and we hope to fulfill that need. We're happy to answer any questions. And I do have the green cards for Mr. Barberi.
Thank you.
So we'll be able to file those as well.
Great, thank you. Mark?
Yeah, I'm going to almost defer to Josh, but we seem to have a discrepancy. Somebody corrected the address as 827B. All the paperwork's filled out as 837B.
I believe the address is 837B.
I mean, I just want to make sure that, you know, we could potentially approve this based on clarifying and getting the address right, or do we have to stick with the paperwork we've got?
No, well, actually, what will carry the day is what the newspaper advertisement says.
I'm down 837B on all the documents that you guys provided.
That's the address that we have. It's
Yeah.
837B.
It's 837B.
That's fine. I just want to make sure that we're not going to get hung up on an address technicality here.
As long as if the application, the license, and the advertisement match, then we're good.
All of those match.
Okay.
Yeah, all of it matches.
Thank you, Josh.
All right, great.
I have a question, Beneath.
Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
What are the proposed hours for the business?
Our business hours is gonna be, for the lunch, we'll be open from 11:30 to 2:30. Then we'll be open for dinner from 5 to 9:30.
How many days?
Yeah, it's 7 days in a week.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? So looks good, Josh?
Beneath, Mark has his hand up.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
I don't have a question, but Vineet, I feel obligated to give our applicants the same speech we give all our applicants. Josh, you'll laugh when we do this, is if you have not been in the town of Long Meadow before with a business, we take our liquor licenses very seriously. We will do compliance checks, probably within the first 6 months. We hope to never see you here again, except when you submit, your renewal paperwork. I personally wish you the best of luck in a new venture. I just want to make sure that you understand we take our liquor licenses seriously. Our police do compliance checks, and we will, want to make sure that nobody underage is served alcohol in the town of Long Meadow.
I just have one final question, Beneath. Are you planning to have a lot of vegetarian dishes? My daughter wanted me to ask.
Still vegan dishes too.
Oh, good, okay.
Yeah.
I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
When do you plan on opening?
Maybe like in 2 weeks. It's still under construction, depending upon the work, how it gets fast.
Awesome.
So this license probably won't make it through the state in 2 weeks. So,
We understand.
as you're aware, yeah. But the summer, ABCC slows to a crawl this summer.
All right.
I'll make a motion, we close the
I just have
hearing.
to ask if there's any public,
Okay.
any public comment. I don't see any.
All right, I think somebody was making a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion, we close the hearing.
Second.
Mr. Hamabathy?
Yeah.
Mr. Gold?
Yes.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
Mr. Zwerko?
Yes.
Mr. Levine?
Yes.
All right, and I will entertain another motion.
I'll make a motion, we grant the license to Royal Spice Indian Cuisine, doing business as Royal Spice Inc., or the other way around, at 837B William Street.
I'll second.
Mr. Hamabathy?
Yes.
Mr. Gold?
Yes.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
Mr. Zwerko?
Yes.
Mr. Levine?
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us and kind of echoing what some of the other members have said. We wish you the best of luck. I think that you'll see that the people of Long Meadow, they want to spend their money in Long Meadow and support Long Meadow businesses. So if you all work hard, I think you'll be rewarded by this community. And we want to just say welcome to Long Meadow.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so let's jump back into our board and committee interviews. Let's do the two folks for Recycling Commission together. Greg Link, who's looking for an appointment to the Energy and Sustainability Committee and also the Recycling Commission, and also Erwin Pears.
Beneath, Erwin has actually had to cancel today, so we're going to postpone his till the next meeting.
Okay, great, thanks. So do we have Greg with us?
Yes.
All right, great. Welcome, Greg. Just if you could start off with your name, address, and a little bit about why you are seeking appointment to these two different groups.
Sure. My name is Greg Link. I live at 125 Cooley Drive. I've been in Long Meadow for about 8 years. I am, my day job is printed circuit board, field application engineer. So my passion, though, is with recycling and energy conservation. I'm one of 2 residents in Long Meadow that have converted to geothermal heating. My house is fully powered with solar, active gardener, And I figured with the circuit board experience, there's potential e-waste expertise that I can bring to the table, and just try and do my job as, you know, a civic citizen to bring some of that expertise and help the town of Long Meadow, which I've enjoyed for the last 8 years.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the board? Mark?
Yeah, Greg, thanks for applying. One of the things that the recycling committee is looking for is they're always looking for people with new ideas of things that we can do to help the recycling in the town of Long Meadow. Do you have anything just off the top of your head, or you going to look around first? Or
yeah, and again, go back to the e-waste thing. It's finding a way to make that successful. You know, certainly making circuit boards, you know, we would send back old scrap boards for money. I mean, they're worth money. There's copper, gold, nickel. I mean, everything is worth something. And so to be able to utilize that, to bring that to some kind of economic feasibility, I think would help. You know, batteries are getting more and more recyclable as we approach. Lithium ions are now even more recyclable than they were before. Alkaline batteries are now recyclable. You know, things that we would generally throw away, I think there's actually value there.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? All right, Greg, thank you for joining us and for applying, and you'll hear from us soon after we vote on your appointment.
Okay, thank you.
All right, great, thanks. And then we have two folks applying for the Zoning Board of Appeals, David Lavenberg and Jerry Plum.
They're both on the Zoom, so I'm going to put them in now.
All right, great, thanks. Jerry, Dave, thank you both for joining us. If you could start off with, and Jerry, we'll start with you. If you could just introduce yourself, give us your name, address, and why you're seeking reappointment.
Sure. Jerry Plum, I live at 125 Ellington Street. I've lived in town since 1997. I've been on the board for at least 10 years, I would say. As a practicing lawyer for some 35 years, I think I have a certain expertise to lend to the board. With Dave as our chairman, we are a close-knit board. We work well together. We have good chemistry. And I think it's important work that we do for the town with respect to the enforcing and interpreting the zoning bylaw.
Great, thank you. Dave, if you could unmute. And similarly, Dave, if you could tell us, you start off with your name, address, and why you're seeking reappointment.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Great. Hi, good evening, everyone. Dave Lavenberg, 58 Maple Road here in Long Meadow. Presently serving as the chairman of the zoning board. I've been doing it for so long, I can't tell you exactly when it started. But similar to Jerry, I've been on the board for a very long time. I'm an attorney in town where I serve as a partner at Bacon Wilson. So in addition to my legal expertise, I obviously have a lot of experience assisting the town in zoning matters. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the select board?
So I noticed I'm actually attending your hearing next week to discuss this, but this is a good opportunity as well. I have noticed on looking back at the Agenda Center that we're missing some minutes for a lot of the past ZBA meetings, which, and I'm also a real estate attorney, and not having the minutes up there can be problematic going down the road. So I would just, I think it's very important that close the loop on that. I know you guys do good work, and I have heard from people who have been in front of the Long Meadow ZBA, and they always tell me they've gotten a fair shake. So I just hope we can close the loop on that and going forward, make sure that those get on there.
Sounds good.
Great. Mark?
Yeah, thanks. This, I guess for both Jerry and Dave, one of the things I hear from people is there's a lot of zoning bylaws that we don't enforce, or a lot of issues that don't get enforced, and then they show up before the ZBA, who's faced with but nobody's ever enforced it before. How do we deal with that? Maybe more importantly, how should we deal with that? And I'll let either one answer it.
We have a case right now, Mark. Was this just a question that popped in your head, or are you thinking of a case that's presently pending?
No, I don't want to talk about any present cases. This is just, I don't want to talk about cases. I don't want you to, I'm just thinking theoretically and in general.
Okay, well, you're right. I wouldn't talk about the case, but in context, we have requested a legal opinion from town council on any zoning board matters that we feel require them, including that type of an issue. And we have learned that to the extent that the town has not enforced specific provisions, that there may actually be something of a statute of limitations problem. So one thing that we would probably encourage an applicant, anyone adverse, is to try to work it out between themselves, and in exchange, the town would then agree to withdraw the violation. And that's what we're currently exploring without regard to a specific case.
Thank you.
Great. Anyone else with a question? All right. Well, Jerry, Dave, thank you both for joining us, and we'll vote on your appointment at our next meeting.
Thank you so much for all you do for the town, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
All right. We will now move into the select board comments. So,
Are we going to do appointments, Vineet? We have some appointments for committee appointments.
Oh yeah. we gotta vote on some, huh?
We don't have to.
All right. I will, entertain motions to make appointments.
I'll make a motion that we appoint or reappoint Arlene Miller to a 3-year term on the Community Preservation Commission.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. Mike?
Mr. Hamavathy?
Yes.
Mr. Gold?
Yes.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
Mr. Swerko?
Yes.
Mr. Levine?
Yes.
Given the fact that we're doing roll call votes, I'm going to put a bunch of them together if nobody minds. I'm going to make a motion that we reappoint John Bresnahan and Patrick Carnahan to 3-year terms on the Conservation Commission, reappoint Sandra McFadden and Marianne Squire to 3-year terms on the Council on Aging, reappoint Steve Weiss to a 3-year term on the Historic Commission, reappoint Dave Miller to a 3-year term on the Energy and Sustainability Committee, reappoint Andrew Berkey to a 3-year term on the Parks and Recreation Committee, and reappoint Arlene Miller and Virginia Ryder to 3-year terms on the Recycling Committee, and reappoint Patrick Carnahan to a 3-year term on the Tree Committee.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? No? All right. Mike?
Mr. Hamavathy?
Yes.
Mr. Gold?
Yes.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
Mr. Swerko?
Yes.
Mr. Levine?
Yes.
All right. Great. Okay. So now we'll move over to select board comments. I do not have any comments tonight. Does anyone else have a comment they'd like to make? We'll start with Mark.
Thanks. I have a few comments. The first one is just a traditional reports on things that have been going on since last year. I was at a Pioneer Valley, what's called MPO, Metropolitan Planning Meeting. They finally and firmly confirmed Long Meadows projects on schedule. The Long Meadow L project, that was not, it was always potentially option, but it's now really been defined, so it's confirmed. One of the issues they are facing is other projects getting substantially expensive, and I'll just point out how expensive. There's a roadway project in Ware that's gone from $5.4 million to $15 million. It's a bridge repair. And the Springfield X project from $13 million to $26 million. Those are not insignificant changes, and I think they lead further to the knowledge that we're in fact going to see very long delays in any future traffic improvement projects. The numbers are beyond belief and are quite staggering. The Pioneer Valley Transit Authority is at their meeting June 26th. They're operating this new fiscal year without a state budget yet, and the state provides most of their funding, but they are work on that. They're renegotiating some contracts with their unions, but just a reminder that their ridership is free for everybody in July and August, and so people in Long Meadow, although we only have one route, the G5 route, people should take advantage of the PVTA free travel. For people who don't know, that I think it was commented, but people need to understand at home, that I think it's the largest, but it might be the second largest contract that the town has, which is for hauling our trash from our house to our disposal site. That hauling contract, we've now just closed the bids, and we'll be reviewing those bids. It's a pretty significant review. The select board's going to be asked to, I'm sure, weigh in on it when the time comes, but people need to know that that's in process, even though the current contract doesn't end until the end of the current fiscal year. The concern is that if we do change haulers, or should change haulers, there needs to be a very long lead time if the new hauler needed to get equipment, for example, or whatever it takes. And so the DPW team and the trash hauling contracting team is pretty much on top of it. The other thing I'll just comment on personally, it sounds like finally we're going to have, I'm being deposed as part of the lawsuit with the DPW contract that's supposed to take place this week, but frankly, this is the 5th week that it's supposed to be taking place, and it has been canceled each time in the past, not last 5 weeks, but in the past 5 or 6 months. But hopefully, so that contract, that lawsuit, will hopefully be moving forward, but we don't know. That's my report.
Great, thanks, Mark. Josh?
Few things. I had coffee at Poor Things on yesterday, and saw the pool. It's looking good at Bliss. People were talking about it. They're excited. I heard lots of things, people for and against the pool, but there are people excited about it, and I just want to thank DPW and the rest of the staff, acquisitions, on getting that done. Looks good. On the middle school building committee, we had a meeting last week. There's a lot of discussion about the location, and discussion about other locations, and I would encourage anybody who is curious about how we got to where we are, you can go back and watch other meetings. But there will be a couple meetings next month, because at the beginning of September, I think the acronym is PSR. It is something, I'm probably butchering it, but a preferred schematic report has to go to, Ian's nodding, so I must have got it right, is going to the MSBA and so that's really, the committee is picking what design we want the state to look at, and what we can get reimbursed for, and what ultimately the town will be voting for, which is still on track for next November, would be the town vote to do an override to get that through. I think a big thing that we're going to discuss next week or next month, right now, both of our middle schools have auditoriums that I think they do get used. I've been there with my elementary school aged kids for performances, but we are discussing whether we want to have an auditorium at a new school or a gymnatorium or a cafetorium. And so that's, I think, a big decision because there's different, we're getting them priced out because it's different amounts of reimbursement for what the state will pay us back for. I think an auditorium in the whole, they will pay you for the stage or help pay for the stage, but not for the chairs, or maybe not for the technical. There's, that's going to be discussed a lot next month because at the end of the day, that will have a big impact on what the town will pay. So if anybody has thoughts on that, I would encourage them to attend the meeting or to send us an email. So thank you very much.
Josh, just clarification, you said the town vote would be next November. Do you mean November 24, which is next November, or November 25, which is next November and then a year?
My wife and I argue about this all the time. This November, I think, is November 24th.
Okay, that's fine.
That's a perfectly valid question because that's
November 2025.
November 2025, because there would be, once the preferred schematic is sent in, there's a ton of work that the consultants do to get a better price. Right now we have very general amounts that we're looking at, and when they can narrow in on one, that's when we get down to like the real nitty gritty. So that's a great question.
Great, thanks. Anyone else? Dan?
Thank you. I just wanted to recognize a Long Meadow resident. A couple weeks ago, Frances Lonergan, she was down on the Cape and saw a swimmer in distress. And I think many people probably, saw her on the news or read the article. But she sprung into action and actually saved the swimmer's life. So a Long Meadow resident, I just want to make sure that we, recognized her for those heroic acts tonight. So.
You know what? We did a certificate of commendation for, we had a local hero a few years ago. So Mike's probably got that Word document ready to go.
Yep.
So I would propose we do that. I think that was a great act.
I was just coming from the Cape, so it made me think of that.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, that'd be a good idea. Something to discuss and look into. Anyone else? Good, okay. So now let's move over to the town manager's report. Lynn, I don't know if we were attaching something late and didn't get to do it, or whether we just have the
I do have
from the department.
Thank you. I do have a report. It's not typed up, so I will be doing that and posting it after the agenda, but I'll just run through some things quickly. Just draw your attention to a couple items in other departments' monthly reports. The Adult Center has been reviewing fees and has realized that the pickleball fees being charged here in town are much lower than other communities, and so they will be doing an increase to those fees in September. They've announced it in the newsletter, just a $1 increase that they're going to be charging. The Parks and Rec Department monthly report, as you will see in there, has an update on the banner sponsorship. We've only had 5 purchased. They're benchmarking other communities to see what they're charging, and they're going to consider a rate adjustment to attract more. And so that will come back to you at a further point if that happens. The much talked about Bliss Pool is ongoing. The work is ongoing. The pool's filled, and we're in the last stages of health and safety inspection, some punch list items related to that. We, at this point, are anticipating opening sometime this week. So I will have a solid date for you in the next couple days. As you know, I've been working with Bay Path on a renewed pilot agreement. We have come to an agreement on an increase for FY25 of 3%, and they have committed to 3% increases for 26 and 27. And another update from a monthly report, DPW road marking work is starting and will be completed by the end of July. And I just want to call your attention to the engineering section of the DPW monthly report to see the vast amount of projects that have started or are at various stages of progress. Elementary playground installation work has started at all 3 sites. Then the rubberized surface will be laid after the equipment is installed. Sidewalk work is going to start soon. A contract was signed for $393,651. This is for spot treatment work on Woodlawn Place, Western Drive, Farmington Ave, Deepwood Drive, Wakefield Drive, and Maple Road. Work at Greenwood Center is continuing. The painting work has done its first full round of completion. Carpet has been installed, new flooring in the heavy-use hallway and multi-purpose room, and furniture's there being assembled. And just another item from a monthly report, the Parks and Rec Commission is still seeking input and feedback on the clay courts at Bliss Playground, or Bliss Park. The next meeting of Park and Rec Commission is Tuesday night, July 16th at the Adult Center at 6 p.m. They'll take public comment there, or you can email the Park and Rec Director, Barry Jarvis, with thoughts and feedback on the status of the clay courts. And that concludes my report. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Mark?
Yeah, Lynn, I noticed in the monthly reports, we had pretty much our year-end, budget to actuals from the town, from the department. I was wondering what process was used to look at those. I tried to go down through the list, and a lot of it is, 98%, 101% kind. But is there a threshold of below or above that triggers somebody looking at those line items? And I know we've already set next year's budget, whether or not those were actual, but I think there ought to be a review somehow of the budget to actuals based on whatever the threshold is. And I'm not, I have an opinion, but not a definitive answer.
Sure. Since Ian's here, I'm happy to defer to him, but I can also tell you that monthly budget reports are run, especially in preparation for the coming fiscal year budget. We look at how far expended that current budget is, but we also look at 2 or 3 years of past budget too, to figure out if we're really far off or what we could expect to keep forecasted ahead. But I'm happy to have Ian answer to the specifics of your question.
So to the specifics of what the thresholds are in terms of reviewing or reaching out to department heads for clarification or adjustments to the budgets, I usually look at about once it reaches above 100%, I reach out to the department head to see what in terms of expected activity they're going to have for the rest of the year. And once it gets over 110%, I specifically reach out for transfers in order to get that done. So far, I've received transfers from most of the departments, and I'm still working on a couple stragglers. There's, things that need to be wrapped up for year end. So I realize that some people are working through that. I've received lots of help from DPW, especially because they have a lot of activity that needs to get closed out for the year. So I realized that in this specific budget to actual, it might look like we have some overages, but that should be rectified by the end of the month.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay, great.
Dan has his hand up, please.
Sorry, somebody want to say something?
Yeah, just quickly, Lynn, I was just curious in terms of with the rising heat, could you just touch on some of the cooling centers in town for specifically our elderly residents, but just residents in general who might need to seek better shelter?
Sure. So regardless of age, Storrs Library is open for any age group to use as a cooling center. And then, age restricted is the adult center from 8 to 4:30. And then after that, it's open to the community. And then certainly on weekends, we don't formally open cooling centers generally. The adult center is open as the community center on Saturday mornings. But certainly we encourage residents who need cooling space to reach out to the fire department, and we can make accommodations.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, okay. So let's move on to our water rate discussion. Hopefully we've got folks from the Springfield Water and Sewer Commission there.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, great. If you all could come up to the microphone. The way that I was thinking about, possibly structuring this discussion was to talk to the folks of the commission. We sent questions over to them last week, and Mike, I don't know if you can put those questions up on the screen, but I thought we could go through the questions with the commission and, ask other questions and have a discussion with them. And then after we have had a chance to talk to the commission, then Lynn, maybe you could go over the additional documents you provided to help with this discussion that attach to the agenda. And then after that, I think we can then talk about setting and voting on our rate for FY 2025. So first, Springfield Water Sewer Commission, thank you guys for joining us tonight. If you could just real quickly just introduce yourselves, just so we know who's joined us tonight.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having us. Josh Schimmel, Executive Director at the Springfield Water and Sewer Commission.
Good evening, Dominic Pellegrino, Director of Finance at the Springfield Water Sewer Commission.
Good evening, everyone. Theo Theocles, I'm the Director of Legal Affairs and the Chief Procurement Officer for the Springfield Water Sewer Commission.
All right, great, thank you. So last week we sent over, some questions for you all. They're on the screen now, and I think, we can maybe just walk through these questions, and then, select board, if anyone has, additional questions or anything while we go through these, just feel free to jump in and ask away. So the first question that we had was just in regards to the about $4 million increase in your maintenance and operations budget. So if you all could kind of just walk us through that and, what is accounting for that increase and, why they were adopted this year and so on.
Sure, we'd be glad, and feel free to jump in, and I'll have Theo and Dom jump in. But I mean, there's a variety of operational cost increases. I think Selectman Gold spoke to a lot of the increases that you guys are experiencing in all of kind of municipal operations. So we're having a lot of increases related to volatility in all of the things we purchase, including purchase services. But more importantly, the costs are really increasing in continuing to maintain our 2 water plants that are aging out, and that's why we're building a new plant. And then the resources that we're putting towards building the new plant. So those are really the major components of what the increase is. And that $4 million increase is not just to Long Meadow, that's across to the entire operation, right? That's not Long Meadow's increase, just so we're clear. And glad to answer any questions, but what you're seeing is, 2 treatment plants that are hanging on by a thread that take a lot more time and effort to run consistently. And then as we're gearing up, we're building a brand new $300 million treatment plant on site while we're trying to run 2 other plants that, have been in constant service, never offline, for 50 and probably 85 years old. So there's a lot of complications with that. The newer plant is going to require more staff at a higher level of licensing, and that's more staff to maintain it, more staff to operate it, and all the supporting staff that goes along with that.
Can you, I have some questions, but I think they're, are these increases considered unusual by the commission, and why this year, and why such a big step this year? I just like to go through the questions, I guess.
No, I mean, they're not considered they're not considered unusual for the amount of work that we're doing. We're making generational investment. I think all of our customers, retail and wholesale, have benefited from the great investment that we made 50 and 75 years ago. It's just that infrastructure is aging out. Not just because of it's old, but because of technology and our inability to keep up with the regulations that have changed and the technology that has changed. So we're trying to keep up with regulations that are forming fairly quickly here with technology that's 50 and 75 years old. So the investment for us, we've been probably, I don't know, 10 years, 8 years in the making of kind of going through our due diligence to upgrade all of our facilities, water and wastewater facilities. This one at the water treatment plant is obviously the largest and most impactful to the budget, but for the amount of work that we're doing, this is expected.
So this is increased maintenance and costs for your existing facilities, is what you're telling us?
And for the new facilities and
Well,
staff.
why wouldn't that be capitalized? I mean, we always do that. Any work we do for something that's going to be capitalized isn't an operating budget, that's all capital work. I would
Yeah,
think.
the capital work is separate from the operating budget, but the operating budgets include all of the debt service, right? That's rolled up in all the operating costs.
So it goes along with the gear up of the beginning of the new plant. As Josh mentioned, that there is stress to maintain that old plant as well as the beginning of the new plant, which goes along with all the financing that took place to get where we are today. The loans that we have with the EPA and with the state revolving fund require an additional steps for reporting every quarter, every month. So a lot of resources need to go into maintaining the records in place, as well as with the work that needs to be done up at the plant itself when it comes to planning and operating.
Yeah, I'm not questioning operations. Well, I may be questioning operations, but the fact is that if you're attributing increased operating costs to preparing capital projects, well, that's what I thought I heard. My thought would be that that's capital and not, and not operating expenses.
No,
But
I
if
mean-
that's not it, then that's not it.
No, that's not it.
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I just want to make sure that's not what I heard.
Yeah, understood. I mean, I would say in terms of like sophistication of financing for what we're doing here with this type of investment, I think we're doing a pretty good job of what belongs in all of the buckets of whether it's operating cost or capital, et cetera. So I think we're in pretty good shape there. And our ratings would indicate it, the fact that we competed to get the financing to build these plants at 1.85% with quite flexible terms for $250 million worth of it, and the balance at 2% fixed. We have really shook the tree to get the best possible financing to build out all of this infrastructure. So you're not going to find anything better available anywhere in terms of financing what we're doing here.
If nothing further on question one, we can move over to question two. And question two is about the true-up process. So, so given that a unit cost is determined for the year at the end of the fiscal year, when's the process by which costs are trued up to the participating cities and towns? And obviously focusing on Long Meadow.
Yeah, I think it's probably important for you folks to get familiar with your contract, right? And I don't mean that to criticize, but a lot of these questions are going to be answered in your contract. It's all spelled out. So everything in terms of like how we do the true-up, it is spelled out in your contract with the Sprinkle Water and Sewer Commission, and we follow that to a T. And it's the same, not just for Long Meadow, but for all of our other wholesalers as well. And I probably can read it for you chapter and verse, which probably is not going to be productive, but Dom, maybe you can just speak a little bit to, I don't know how much detail that you want in terms of how the true-ups are.
I'll give the high summary in kind of layman terms. We set an estimated billing for the town like we did for FY25. That cost is divided by 12 months, and that billing begins in July, which you just received. So from July to June, you'll have that billing in place for FY25. At the end of fiscal year 25, when we come in and we finalize our books and we get our actual costs, we take those actual costs and based upon your proportional use of what was produced at our water treatment plant, we take that proportion and apply against those actual costs to get what your true actual cost is for FY '25. And at that point, we compare it to what you were billed for FY '25, and the difference would either be an extra charge if we undercharged you, or a credit if we overcharged you.
And that's in the context of all of our wholesale customers and the operating cost for the water supply and transmission, which is contractually what you guys are billed for, right? So it doesn't include our retail water, our water distribution in Springfield or Ludlow. It's just the water production piece that you guys get billed for.
If I could, I think this question was mine, but my question is is that based on volume, or is it based on total cost? In other words, when you do this true up, do you say, I'm just going to throw out a number, 500 million gallons, okay? And therefore, we take our total actual operating cost divided by 500 million gallons. That's our cost per million gallon, or our cost per gallon, or whatever you want to do. And then we go back to each town and say, you use so many gallons, and therefore your annual cost should have been, but it was this. So my question is, what's the true-up process? Is it based on usage, or is it based on something else? Because it is not clear to me, or it has not been clear to me.
It's spelled out in your contract very clearly, and it's based on your usage after we compute the total operating cost. And the terms of all of that are spelled out very clearly. So yeah, it's based upon, it's not just your volume, it's your volume as a percentage against the total of everybody in the bucket, right?
Right.
So yes.
I get that. Okay.
Yep.
So just a follow-up. So one of the things we got, and Mr. Shea gave it to us earlier tonight, was our statements to the town of Longmeadow for April, May, and June. And April and May show the monthly cost, which looks like it's per our contract. But June looks like it's the true-up. Is that?
No.
No.
So why is June different then? Why wouldn't it be the same annual cost as every other month? And then...
So the bill that you have there, the date that it was printed was July, correct?
July 3rd.
July 3rd, right.
Yeah.
So it's for the month of June, I assume.
So the bill itself, when you read it, most of that bill is geared toward our retail customers. What you see there is what was metered in June.
Right.
But the cost that you have on there is according to how we calculate the costs, according to our contracts.
So
they're not.
Wait a second, but that's not consistent with what your executive director said. Wait a second. Let me talk, okay? Then you can talk. Somebody said, we'll charge you the same amount per your contract every month, and then we'll true it up. So this is a June bill. We got it in July, but it's for the month of June, but it's a different amount. So my question is this the true up or not?
it is not.
So why is it different from every one of our other months?
Very easily explained. Because we have 45,000 other customers that are retail, and it's a billing issue in that our bills, it's the same billing program that spits out the bills, right? And so our retail customers, that is the correct heading on the bill for your retail customers. That is not a bill for your usage in June. That's a bill, it doesn't say it correctly on there, I understand that, but that is a bill for your projected July usage, and it'll be the same every month moving forward.
What am I missing here? That the bill for the usage in June
I agree.
is different.
Very confusing. It says the
I
service
understand that.
period is May 31st to June 28th is what this bill is
Yes,
for.
it's incorrect.
And it's 40.
Well, then how do you straighten out your billing
It's
system?
$40,000 more than the typical month.
I mean,
FY24.
if the contract says we'll get billed an equal amount for 12 months during the fiscal year, shouldn't that be what we get billed?
But your usage isn't equal throughout the fiscal
Oh,
year.
I get that, and I understand the process of true-up. That's why I started with that discussion. Somewhere in middle July, you figure out how much we actually use for the fiscal year, and you're going to send us an adjustment, whether it's positive or negative. I really do understand that.
Correct.
But because this June bill, which to me is for usage in the fiscal year ending July 1st. Why, I just don't understand why it wasn't the same.
The charge-
Why do you bill us in June for a future fiscal year's rate?
The charge that was printed on that bill for July begins your FY '25 billing.
I hear you, and I understand that. The problem is, you're billing us in July for water we used in June. So you're billing us in July for water used in June. Is that not what you're telling me?
I am not telling you that.
So this
The
says,
usage-
this said, wait a second, it says service period, May 31st to June 28th.
I understand what it says on the bill, and we were saying before that the bill itself is geared toward our retail customers. I do not have a customized bill for wholesale customers. That is why the contract, the way it's written, your usage each month, aside from the June into July, every month your usage is different, but your amount being charged is still the same.
Because that was the contract, I get it.
So we charge you for the cost that will be incurred from July 1st through June 30th.
So what you're telling me is,
The
you should
usage
be
will be
sending us,
used-
you should be sending
the
us a
usage will
bill
be
that has
used-
no numbers on it for usage at all, just a dollar amount.
It doesn't necessarily have, it shouldn't reflect the date. The date is what I believe is throwing you off, because
It's more than throwing me off.
I
I
can
think it's
tell.
wrong. You're billing us, the bill clearly says it's for usage in the month of June.
Understood. And we have not been able to overcome a software issue in order to print out a bill that can satisfy that requirement of the date. However, what I will say is that bill actually is billing you the correct amount for July of 2024 pursuant to the contract. The dollar value you are being charged is absolutely correct. The date doesn't matter, because you're going to be charged that same amount for the next 12 months, July, August, September, all the way through. So you're picking up on a glitch in a software package that serves 45,000 other customers that we can't overcome. If the select board would prefer, we can send you a hand-typed up bill that's different than this, that we can print that out and eat it ourselves and take the number off it and say, here's your bill. But this is what gets generated by our software. We're not going out to purchase additional software to print out 4 bills.
So this bill that we received on July 3rd is a fiscal 2025 bill.
That is correct.
But actually, we didn't. We actually received it in June.
This is, service date, I know you said it doesn't matter, but it says end of service date is June 28th. If you just happened to print it on June 30th, would we have accidentally been charged less? Because of the
We
computer
run the
program?
bills at the same time for everybody. That's just how the system works. It's not something that we're printing out. You guys are a smaller community. We print out 45,000 bills a month, including our wholesale bills, which are 4?
4.
Right? So it's just a software glitch that we have not been able to.
You can understand why this is alarming to us, right?
Yes, of course, and I'm not criticizing. Like I said, if the select board would prefer a note that's not a bill, that says this is what your monthly payment for. By the way, I do think we actually send you something that says your monthly bills will be X for, each bill will be X for all of the months. It's not in that, it's in an email that comes with the budgeting process. But if the select board would prefer a letter that says this is your monthly bill, I believe we can accommodate that.
So I just want to clarify. So the July bill we got is for July and a 2025 bill. It has nothing to do with usage in the prior month.
That is correct.
That's correct.
So,
That's correct.
okay, so we should not, so having this usage on it and usage dates and a usage amount is just confusing as all get out.
Yes.
But has no applicability.
No bearing, and I would just add, if we could remove it, we would, trust me.
But you're saying usage does matter, of course, for the true-up, which is the ultimate
correct
number that matters.
Yes.
But that bill's yet to come.
But that is
Or
not
credit.
recorded on those bills. That's recorded on our master meter.
Usage is important for both the estimated billing when we calculate your new fiscal year and your true-up. Usage is important.
Right, so sometime in July, in the next, hopefully next couple of weeks, you will work through that true-up, I assume.
For
Maybe it's
FY
going to take 6 weeks, I don't know.
For fiscal year
sometime, right?
90 days, I think,
Right,
is what we're
okay.
allowed, but we do it
Right.
sooner than that.
But that bill will come in 2025, correct?
So the bill will be,
It's a fiscal year 2025 bill to the town of Long Meadow based on a true-up of 2024 contract. Is that a
and it could
fair
be,
assessment?
it could be a credit or an extra charge, yes.
It's a true-up,
That's
but,
right.
yeah, it could be a credit or, it could-
Yeah.
and we've seen both. I've been on the board 15 years.
Yep.
I've seen
Yes.
it do both things. All right. So, but it's a bill we will get in 2025 for a true-up of 2024.
Correct.
Okay, and I guess my question to the town of Long Meadow is, what bucket does that payment come out of? Does it come out of our 2024 revenue or our 2025 revenue? And it's not a question that I need to get answered right now, but ultimately has a lot of bearing on our water system, the water rates we charge our customers.
Yeah, and I mean, I would just add that this has been the same process all 15 years that you,
Right.
Like, this is, we
Yep.
haven't changed anything
And
this
it's been
year.
confusing as all hell for 15 years.
Yeah, well, again, why don't you folks think about it, and if you would prefer to just get a letter every month from us and not the bill, we can send you a letter.
Did you say you have 4 wholesale customers?
Yes.
I mean,
on the water side.
Okay. It might be nice to do. 4 is not that difficult. I think, I just have a question. So the other 11 months that we don't have bills for, that I'm not looking at, they were 125,000 change.
I don't have the number.
Yeah.
But that's, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Every month is, they bill the same every month.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean,
July 1st through June 1st.
So we get the
Yes.
letter saying this is what we're gonna get, it's your year. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Just quickly, so are we going through all of these questions, right? Or that's
up to you guys. I mean, we're prepared to answer all of them.
Yeah, I'd like us to try to go through the questions in order and then.
Yeah, that was the plan, yeah. But, I mean, obviously, if, folks just want to discuss the questions, I let that play out. But no, yeah, that's how I see the proceedings. So we go through these questions first, and then, unless there's any additional questions, if anything else, folks can ask that. Okay, all right. So, Mark, I don't know if question 3 was also your question, and I don't know if you feel like it was answered through this discussion that just happened?
Yeah, that's part of what was answered, I believe.
Yeah, okay, great. So let's move over to, 4 and 5 can kind of, I think we kind of talk about this together. If you guys can, just kind of walk through your projected budget for the next 5 years, what it looks like, and also kind of talk about, what constraints there are on your year-over-year budget increases, and, who's reviewing and approving the budget.
Sure. So the question is, do we have a projected a budget for the next 5 years? Yes. We shared that with your staff on April 3rd. So you've had that budget projection for some time now, and it shows the projected costs going out. Correct?
Yes, it does.
For 10 years.
For 10 years.
So you get a 10-year budget on or about April.
Yes.
And that you also get that in December as well, correct?
Not every year, but most years, yes.
Right, so the process, a lot of this I think is just kind of understanding our process. So Dom will send you what we believe the cost is going to be for your wholesale bill in December. And then as we refine things in our budget, we usually don't see the swings that we've seen this year, but we're also doing unprecedented capital work, and we've gone from 30, 60 to 90 to 100% on a very large capital project, and that's why those numbers have shifted again, and we've already discussed that. So the April notification was kind of just an update to the December estimate, and that's when you were notified of the increases, correct?
Correct.
And
Okay.
how much do you hold to those projections, because if I go back last year, didn't project this year's increase. If I go back 3 years ago, it didn't project it. So the question is, what value does that 5-year projection have if the Springfield Water and Sewer Commission reserves the right, which I assume you do, to change the budget based on how you set your budget?
Yeah, I mean, I would say we do everything within our power to have control and manage the budget. I think, as everybody knows, over the past handful of years, budgeting in these type of operations has been very, very challenging. And again, like I said, I think particularly in the fact that we're probably doing the largest public works project that Western Mass has seen in the past 40 or 50 years, and that's been advancing for a number of years. But the biggest piece of that is when we go from the 60 to 90% and start sharpening our pencils and having our third-party engineers and finance people sharpening the pencils on the construction estimates, and then you bid it, and we're bid out right now. So those things are the swing in the budget for this year.
But why? I mean, this goes back to my original, why does your capital budget affect your operating budget?
I'm speaking to the operating side of this, right? So as we prepare to better understand what the construction processes will be while we're building our new plant, we need to be able to operate the existing plant structures while they're building a new plant. And this is a plant that is 75 and 55 years old, two separate components. Those components are, I would say, actively failing. We're out of compliance for certain water quality standards, and we're doing everything we can to continue to supply reliable, safe drinking water. And so those challenges, along with the fact that as we know what we're building, we're going to be gearing up to have the appropriate number and licenses of operators and maintenance staff, et cetera. And then all of the support to build these projects. It's not a capital per se, but it's an operational cost to have more engineers, more support staff, more maintenance technicians, and that's what you're seeing. So I would add that, I don't think you've seen a swing like this in decades. I mean, I've been at this for 31 years, and have never seen anything like we're undertaking right now, because nobody has to do that. It's a generational investment. Nobody has invested this type of money since 1974.
Can we go to the next question, which I think is a really important one?
At least that question.
Okay, yes, apologies, you tried to combine those. So, yes, so what, if any, constraints are there on the year-over-year budget increases in the SWC, who or what governing board that reviews ultimately approves the budget? So that's all kind of defined through our statutory governance, which is Mass General Law 40N, right? So we have a board of 3 commissioners that oversees the Water and Sewer Commission, and then that's how we have to establish an adequate rate structure to support the work that is in the budget. And that's how we set our rates. It's no different than many municipal functions. Are there any constraints over year to year, Dom? I don't know if you want to, constraints in terms of what? Do we have, we don't have like a limitation of like a 2.5 override. No, we don't have restraints. We are actually obligated to set the rates to meet what the work in the budget says we're doing. So how do we keep our rate structure in check? Well, we throw things overboard. We throw projects overboard, or we pinch where we have to pinch, and we expand where we have to expand. In this particular year, faced with what we're facing, it's an expansion year.
Thank you. Actually, I was referring to number 6.
Oh, okay.
Which I'm sure I know all of my fellow members are wondering.
Sure. Did the cost to all wholesale customers increase by 28%? Please explain any discrepancies between the wholesale customers. No, the cost to everybody did not increase 28%. That's really based on how much volume you use. So we talked about this earlier on, right? We have an operating cost for the bucket of wholesale water as it relates to water production. So there's a cost associated with that, and then the pieces of those pie depend on how much you use. So if you use more water for your community over the past 3 years, I think that's how we contractually have to average it. then your cost is going to be more because you use more water. If you use less water as an entire entity, then your cost will be less. It's the same pot of money divided by how much you use along with the other wholesalers.
So the averages of the other wholesalers, as they fluctuate on average per year, some folks have a higher percentage increase, some has a low percentage increase, but it's all within 1.5% change.
So
it adds up to
for
100%.
example, what is for the city of Springfield's increase? Is it the difference between a wholesale and a retail customer? Is that why there might be a difference?
No. So the city of Springfield ends up paying the difference. So they actually usually get stuck holding the bag, to be honest. What ends up happening is and it's in your true up, right? Go ahead.
I mean, if you calculate the differences of the documents that you guys received and as you guys did the 28% difference with Long Meadow, did that for East Long Meadow, Agawam, and Springfield. Agawam, there's a 26% increase. East Long Meadow comes out to 26.3, Southwick 26.9, Springfield 26.3. Yours is 28 because your averages over the last 3 years rose up a little bit based upon the use that you guys had.
Okay, so if there's nothing further on that.
You're good?
Yeah, or anyone else have anything further on that question? No, okay. You all can hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, all right, so number 7 is related to what we were just talking about. So does Long Meadow have any opportunity to participate in the decision-making process of the SWSC?
No, that's our operations are statutory in their nature. The board of 3 appointed by the mayor of Springfield. So, but one of the things that I think, one, aside from all of the communications that we send, which detail pretty much all of this in your contract, I think that moving forward, it's probably helpful for everybody when Dom sends over the estimated cost in December, when you guys, and that's usually when we're starting our budgeting process, we should have an annual meeting with you folks, let's say January, February-ish, so you can ask the questions that you need to ask about what the projected costs are for you, and we can have a dialogue. And again, the process is we give you the best information we have in December. A lot of times you don't get the letter in April because we feel close enough. But if something changes in that, we update you as soon as we are confident we know what that update and change is. Sometimes it's a credit, sometimes it's an increase, and we go from there. But I think it'd be worthwhile if you folks are interested in meeting at some point, January, February, and we would intend to do that with the other wholesalers as well. They all get the same letter. So the letter that you get in December is the same letter that all the other wholesale customers get.
Yeah, just on that.
No, I think that'd be great. I think we do need to have more dialogue and more communication, because I know for us, if we're passing along these rates to our folks in town, we need to be able to explain it to them. We need to understand it better ourselves. Josh, were you going to say something?
Yeah, just along those lines. This is one of my questions later, but we need to probably do our work on setting a rate much earlier in the year, if possible. And for that, so we can really give people a heads up, and also maybe literally set it earlier, so because it's lining everything up with our fiscal year makes it very tough. Obviously, with that question Mark was talking about earlier, if our true up is falling into a different fiscal year, it's really difficult for us to project. So I think that would be very useful, and then the earlier we can get as much information from you as possible, the better off we are.
Agreed. Yes, I think, we give it to you in December. I think we have until the end of February to actually forward you that information. But obviously, we operate in the same realm of government, so we do understand that, and that's why we get it to you as soon as we have it in December.
Just from my discussions with the DPW folks, it may change quite a bit from December on.
Not always.
Aside from this year, not much.
All right, well, maybe I heard about this year.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, again, generational investment this year,
Yeah.
so.
great. So I think through our discussion, we've kind of already touched on questions 8 and 9. Question 10 is about the water treatment plant. From what we understand, it looks like it's going to be completed in 2028. There are concerns in town about water quality, and I guess this question is kind of just aimed to figure out are steps being taken, before the completion of the plant to address water quality and make improvements there.
Yeah, great question. And yeah, we optimize plant treatment every day, right? So it's something that over the past handful of years, we have really advanced a lot. I think we see a lot more challenges now, not just because of the aging infrastructure and regulatory changes that we've seen, but also because of the size and type of storms that we're seeing are impacting raw water quality. That's why we're building a new plant. The raw water quality has changed, and our technology is too old. So some of the things that may or may not resonate with you, but on a daily basis, we're managing water age. That's a big factor. We're flushing. We've added mixers to our storage tanks. We adjust chlorine on a daily basis, so we have a much more robust ability to analyze in almost real time what's going on in the distribution system and the transmission system, so we can adjust chlorine in and out of the plant, but also what's going on at our storage. So all of those things make a difference. We're also managing out in the watershed more, so to the extent that we can control the organic matter that's causing non-compliance, we're doing that as well with some fairly aggressive watershed management techniques. So there's, and we've also really increased our watershed and raw water source sampling programs as well. So we have a much better understanding of when it does this is what happens in the reservoir. The issue a lot of the times now is, we used to get a half an inch of rain over 2 days, but now we get 3 inches in 4 hours, and that washes a lot more stuff into, a lot more organics into the reservoir. So we're just seeing impacts that we haven't seen previously in the past handful of years. And that's why we've kind of gone about all the things we've done to manage that on a daily basis. So glad to answer any questions on that.
Just a quick question. So this was one of my questions. Just I've been outspoken about just this issue with water quality. This is something that comes up, like if I'm at the grocery store or walking my dog, because residents get the letters, of course. So,
yes.
But 2028 is that realistic in terms of when we're going to see the changes in better quality, or do you have a time frame, or is it?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think realistically, when the new plant comes online, these specific issues should go away. But in the interim, it's really we're at the mercy of the technology that we have to work with and the weather, right? So if you have stable weather for a long period of time without massive rainstorms and short duration, that's a lot better for the watershed, and our reservoir is far more stable. And I think we have pretty good correlation between, I don't want to be an extremist, but when we have short duration, high intensity storms, they impact the reservoir, and the way they impact the reservoir, it's not for a couple days, it's for months. And so we haven't had a long period of time where we don't have these types of storms that are impactful. So that's why we, on a daily basis, optimize what we're doing at the treatment plant. And again, I would add, if you read the notifications that we send, the language in there is these things are harmful to you over decades or a lifetime, right? So these aren't, if it was an immediate concern for anybody's health, you wouldn't be drinking the water, and public health agencies and the Mass DEP and the US EPA wouldn't allow that to happen.
And the other question on the actual water treatment plant, like where our pump station is, we've done a tour through different facilities in town and various infrastructure. My question is, when you complete this plant, are there going to be other costs that the town of Long Meadow is going to have to take on? I'm certainly not an engineer, but the piping that's coming into the town, is that going to change, and then we're going to have to make updates on our end?
No, your water quality should improve. Essentially, you know, you're not going to be out of compliance for HAA 5s or THM. So I don't foresee that. I mean, you have your own infrastructure. I don't know what that is, and haven't been into your pump station, but it shouldn't impact. You know, you're using the same volume of water. Nothing has changed in that water that is going to make a difference to the physical parameters of a pump station or pipe capacity.
Beneath, if I could, Josh, I have to tell you this, and this doesn't necessarily reflect my opinion, but it was a discussion at a select board meeting probably 8 or 9 months ago when we first got word that there was going to be a massive investment in a new filtration system. And the question came up of why in 2025 are we installing 1955 technology of a sand filter when you've just said that all the issues like climate change and things like that, and people mentioned, you know, maybe we should be putting in reverse osmosis or the next level of, you know, the 23rd century technology or 22nd century technology. So the question is, how does the Springfield Water and Sewer Commission look at that instead of just saying, look, we know sand filter technology, it's proven, we can do it, let's just put in another big one that's a little bit better.
Well, we're not putting in a sand filter.
Okay, so what?
So yeah, we have totally different technology and need to have different technology. There's fewer and fewer slow sand filters and rapid sand filter plants for the reasons that we said. They just don't remove organics. And you know, there are things that you can insert in front of rapid sand filters that can address the issue. We can't insert anything in front of our rapid sand filters because of the configuration and age of the system. We don't have a choice. We can't take it offline because we won't be able to supply water to 250,000 customers, right? So for us, there is no other choice to keep those plants running while we can, which is very challenging, and then to right next to them, to minimize the cost and impacts to everything, to build a brand new plant on campus. So one of the things that we're doing is we're actually, when we are building the plant, we still use the slow sand filters for peak flows. During days like today, I'm sure we were using the slow sand filters, which is probably, I'm not going to say lowest quality, but that is the oldest technology that we use. We don't use it on a daily basis. We actually use it as little as we possibly can. But on days when there's a big demand, we use them, and it's satisfactory and it meets the water quality. But those need to be destroyed in order to build a new plant. So there's going to be a time in the coming years where we will not have the capacity, the added capacity of the slow sand filters while we're building the new plant. So we have a lot of challenges to build a new plant. If it was in a cornfield somewhere and we were running all new pipes, it'd be a totally different story, but this is a very complex project. But we're not building new slow sand filters.
Okay. And my other question relates to volume and the difference between Cobble Mountain, which is, I understand, where we get our water from, and Quabbin Reservoir, where Boston and eastern Massachusetts get their water from, and the initiative, I guess, by the Department of Environmental Protection, DEP, that everybody's got to, reduce their water. Is there a water shortage in Western Massachusetts? My contention is that, in fact, the more you sell and the more we sell, the lower the cost per unit is. And as long as there's plenty of water, why are we concerned? Now, if I had Quabbin with billions of gallons of water a day leaking out of it or something, I might be concerned. Do you have a comment about that?
I mean, I can't speak to anybody else's water system. I just wouldn't do that. Every water system has its own characteristics and its own personality. And so I can't speak to anybody else's. But we don't have a water shortage at the Springfield Water and Sewer Commission. We have a 2-year supply in our reservoir, and drink up. That's what I say. I think that
thank you. I mean, that's the same kind of thing I've said.
Yeah, no. One of the biggest challenges we have is the fact that people use less and less water every year, and that is a challenge because the cost to produce the water doesn't go. You have a lot of fixed costs in what we do, and so the cost to produce that water doesn't change because we have staff and buildings and facilities to produce the water. And so you end up spreading that cost, right? The cost doesn't change unless people are using it, so the unit cost goes up. So we do not have a water shortage at this time, and we haven't in a really long time.
So are you active in discussing that with the folks at DEP? You keep telling us you need to be at 56 gallons per person per day or whatever, you know, I mean, you know, the numbers that, we're way over that, and most other people, you know, are you active in saying, you know, that may be good for Quabbin and Boston, but don't apply that to Western Mass?
I weigh in on the Springfield Water and Sewer Commission's business very actively and very vocally. Again, I think, you know, we've sent some information along. It's also in your contract as it relates to our Water Management Act registration, and we're very involved in water policy as it relates to what we do to benefit all of our customers, retail and wholesale. We don't need water use restrictions when we have plenty of water. That hurts everybody, all customers.
I'm going to break, we don't need water use restrictions. Thank you. That's what I want to hear.
In the context that I just said, yes.
Yes, in the context that we said. Thank you.
I've been misquoted before, so it won't be a
You'll be
surprise.
misquoted again, I'm sure.
I can imagine so.
Great. So I think we touched on question 11. Let's move over to 14 through 16, because this is kind of related to the questions we were just talking about. So in terms of I think 14 is asking about the current plants and the work being done. And if you guys could just talk about that. And then 16, I think that's referring to when the new water treatment plant goes online, whether that will resolve the issues with, you know, HA5 and TTHF.
Yeah, sure. We're moving right along. So the projects, we've opened all the bids for the filed sub-bids and for the general contractor. Those are being reviewed now. They've been submitted to DEP for review, and once we get their permission to award, we're going to be awarding that contract, and then we're moving forward. So for a project this size, there's a lot of administrative complications, but we've worked through almost pretty much every single one of those, and we're on the verge of hearing back from DEP for permission to award. So,
and have you actually gone out and borrowed the money and started paying back those bonds on the new project?
There's different sources, and the two main sources are water infrastructure, our WIFIA loan, which is at 1.8%, and our SRF funding. We haven't touched the SRF funding because it's for construction only. The WIFIA funding supports us in the engineering and studies that have been going on for several years already. So that money, yes, we have touched, and we do pay some debt service on that and interest. Actually, we pay interest at this point, not debt, correct?
The loan was structured to pay interest first over the first 5 years, so we're paying interest on that.
And that's not capitalized, the costs associated with that portion of the project?
It's debt service, it's in the debt service.
Right, but so it's in your operation budget debt service. It's not in your capital debt service.
No.
I recognize that when you borrow money for capital, it's also part of your debt service, and you're going to pay for it, and you're going to pass that along. My only question is, does it get capitalized?
Well, I think we have different definitions of capitalization. The debt service that we have here is for the capital that's being performed. So you have your operation and maintenance, where there's no debt service, nothing's involved in there. You have your debt service, which is our capital work. And then you have the capital that's not borrowed. It's our working capital as well. So those three factors play a part in determining the building share.
We cash fund smaller construction projects. We cash fund most engineering. Not the engineering for the new water treatment plant is fairly large, and those costs are we're borrowing for those. Those are big dollar values.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's go back to 12. We just kind of talked about earlier about opening up more communication with you all and having more of a dialogue. Can you guys give us just tell us about your contacts with the town of Long Meadow right now with DPW? What's kind of regular course of business in terms of staying in touch with DPW or providing updates?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're good. There's not a whole lot of need for contact, but when there is, all of our players communicate fine. We have no issues whatsoever. I know we're going to have to work through contracts, and I think that may be a question further down on this list or not, but we're up for some contract renewals, and I think there's some complications with that, but operationally, I think we're fine. When we have issues, they get resolved pretty quickly. I know we've worked with your folks on the capital project that you guys have going on in town now for some redundancy and reliability issues where we come into Long Meadow and come out of your pump station to do a couple things. So I think we're good. And again, I think we're always. We've been in front of the select board probably 3 other times to talk about HAA 5 since 2018. I've been here at least 2 or 3 times. This is what we do, so we're glad to come anytime you folks want to meet. And we've had good communication with Sean and don't have any issues.
Great, thanks. Number 13, so this question's about whether you'll leverage, funds collected from ratepayers, Springfield ratepayers to put towards capital projects, and what the practices of some of your other customer, wholesale towns are.
Yeah, I don't know that I understand this fully, but I mean, we leveraged our relationships and our prominence in the national spectrum of water and wastewater to get some of the loans that we've gotten. In that regard, we're separate from the city of Springfield, so we don't have any capital leverage ability with anything that they do. We're totally independent outside of the appointment of our board by the mayor of Springfield and approval by the Springfield City Council. Our finances are different, etc. So all of the financials that we do are we leverage them ourselves on either competing for certain types of loans or capitalizing on relationships that we have with different folks. So
I think the question, if I can try to interpret this, Vineet, is do the ratepayers' variable cost of water revenue to you get applied to the capital projects?
Of course. Yeah, I mean, all of the, I think one of the fundamental things that I'm hearing here is that I think collectively there needs to be a better understanding of who's paying for what, and maybe that would make the select board feel a little better. But yes, the Springfield residents, if you think of them as a group, just call it Springfield. Well, they pay their exact same rate for the fair share of water transmission and treatment, just like our wholesalers. The costs for everything else in water distribution, getting it from the transmission mains to the tap, has nothing to do with you. You guys aren't billed for it, and that's all on the customers in Springfield. So when those revenues come in from our retail customers, it pays for the retail component of what they're being billed for, and it pays for the wholesale component of water production and transmission.
But
Is that, Dom, does that?
Yeah, I think the part of this is that in the town of Long Meadow, we have 2 revenue streams from each of our retail customers. We have a water distribution charge, which is a fixed cost, and a water usage charge, which is a variable cost. Well, it's based on the amount you use. And I guess the question is that unusual or is that common? And I think when we've seen some other towns that they also have what I'll call the fixed portion of the.
Yeah, that is not uncommon. There are a lot of different ways to bill your customers, and we're familiar with a lot of them and have looked at a lot of them. That's not how we do it. There's a couple reasons for that, but that is not unusual. That's a very popular approach to how to do it, a fixed cost and a variable cost.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was actually my question that Mark was reading, because one of the discussions we've had a lot was, do we use the money that is generated from the ratepayers from the rates that we set as a select board, do we use those funds and put them towards capital projects? We've had the discussion where in the past we've used some of these funds to pay down the rates or make the rates lower in the next year. It's been my thought and opinion, after looking up what the policy states, that in fact we do and should be using the enterprise fund that we collect from the ratepayers to fund capital projects. It's not going to solve all the problems and projects that we have in Long Meadow, but when we're seeing significantly high interest rates, we put those dollars towards some of those projects. It's certainly going to help. In a town like Long Meadow, when we're having these discussions, that's why I asked the question, because I just want to get an idea of what some of your customers, other towns are doing. Are they taking these funds in and just paying down rates to keep rates low? And that it was just helpful for us to understand for our discussion. That's why.
Yeah, I mean, we focus on our business, which is challenging, and not what wholesale customers are. And if you think about it, you have an enterprise fund. We basically are a self-contained enterprise fund, right? So the revenue that we generate from billing, we absolutely leverage or spend that directly on capital and operations. That's how we exist. We don't get state aid. We don't get any, virtually no grants. We only function from our billing. So we function like an enterprise fund, and I won't delve into what people should or shouldn't do. There's a lot of models out there to look at and to speak to. We're different than a municipal water or wastewater department in the fact that we're a separate entity altogether. So we function in a manner in which all that revenue that comes in is how we operate and invest.
All right, great. So 17, we've already answered through this discussion. So just the last question, 18, asking whether there's been a recent audit of the commission's budgeting system.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's online. It's on our webpage. We get audited every year by Markham. We're no different than any other governmental agency. We certify our budgets. We get audited each and every year. I think we do single audits every year at this point because of all the loans and grants that we get as well. So yes, all of that financial information is on our webpage.
Great, thank you. So now we've gone through all of the questions that we sent over to the commission last week, and I want to open it up to the select board for any other questions that you have for the commission while we have them here. No?
Pretty thorough, thank you.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important though that when we send stuff over, like, please take a look at it, because I think you'll find.
The problem is we don't get it.
Okay, well.
It goes to the DPW and sometimes it dead ends there, and we need to be more proactive in getting it to the water and sewer commissioners, which we are.
You guys will be CC'd as well.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and I'm not delving into any of that, but I'm just saying, there's a lot of information in what you get in December, and then any updates thereafter, and then and look at your contract too and be familiar with it, because I think almost all of the questions that were asked here, and we certainly don't mind coming and discussing with the select board at all, and have open communication again with Sean and his staff. A lot of that stuff is in here, and it might be helpful for your folks or for your council to just look at it and be familiar with it, and it'll probably answer a lot of your questions or make you more able to focus in on specific concerns that you have.
So John, if I could, after 40 or 50 years that we've been buying water from the Springfield Water and Sewer Commission, something like that, from the late 1970s, I believe, when we shut down our town wells, we've had several contracts, but they all seem to be the same iteration. Do you see any significant changes coming in the future? I mean, they change from year to year with amounts and dollars and add a few things, but because it's doesn't seem to me that we need to, and that we have. So.
Well, I'm a big believer if it ain't broke, we shouldn't fix it. So I don't foresee that. I mean, we've looked at all sorts of different things, and nothing has risen to the point where we think that let's change what the contract should be or what it looks like or the basis for the contract. So no, I don't anticipate anything like that. Like I said, I think we have some stuff in the contract that we have to work out on border accounts. That's complicated, and we'll have to work through that. But the basis for the contract in its entirety has worked for a long time. It's worked for the other communities. I think we've been a well-managed utility. We're investing appropriately. We're the second biggest water and sewer utility in the Commonwealth. So we have a lot of infrastructure, and again, Springfield pays for its portion of that. But we have a lot of old infrastructure serving a lot of people in the Pioneer Valley, and we're making a generational investment. And so I would say that these aren't usual times coming out of COVID and trying to build something and do something. We really just don't have a choice. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to reliably provide our services. So, we're happy to come in front of really anybody and discuss what we're doing. It's been vetted 10 times over by 40 different people. It's being approved by DEP from a technical and a financial perspective. So we feel pretty good about moving forward into the next 50 years with a lot of renewed infrastructure. Doesn't mean it'll be perfect or anything like that, but we're moving in the right direction.
I just want to turn it over to Lynn if there's anything maybe that we missed in terms of questions or anything you had to add.
No, the only thing I would add is I know we have a contract conversation coming up, and I know we have a renewal that needs to be signed. The one change to that is that it's the select board as the water sewer commissioners that need to sign that. So that's something that we're working through.
Yeah, well, one thing if I could add, and this has less to, we had sent a 5-year, and then we sent you a 1-year renewal. That would give us time to kind of work out some of the issues on the border accounts. I think we'd like to send you a 2-year renewal. We're going to be going out for a revenue bond, and we'd rather have not have a contract up while we're doing that, and that's just being transparent. So that'll give us 2 years to figure out the border accounts between Springfield and Longmeadow, and just putting that out there for the select board.
For people who don't know on the select board, there are houses along Dwight Road that are supplied through Longmeadow, but they're in Springfield. And that's what he means by border accounts. And there's a couple other areas in Park Street and a couple other areas that people are supplied through the Longmeadow water system, but the houses really are in Springfield.
And vice versa.
And vice versa. And
yes,
I presume that's what you mean by
yes,
border accounts.
The border accounts are complicated. There's probably a couple hundred of them. And we have an accounting of every last one of them. And we just need to reconcile. We need to reconcile what goes on there, because they've done things for 40 or 50 years that don't necessarily make sense for our communities. So we'll spell all of that out at some point in time. But we're probably going to need 2 years to iron all that out anyway. So Dom, maybe we just send that over. And go there, and you guys can consider that versus a 1 year. And I think the 2 year also, does the 2 year put them on track with everybody else? No. No, okay.
Great. And Ian, do you have anything for the commission?
No, I just wanted to say thank you guys for making the time to come out here and give such a really broad discussion as to what's going on with the water rates this year.
Yeah, we're glad to come. Let's not make it a regular occurrence. You don't need to be here weekly, but we're certainly glad to come to any of our customers, and we do. So, and we'll follow up on having an annual meeting, December, January, an annual budgeting meeting, so you folks can ask questions.
And when's that software glitch going to be resolved? So Mark,
you guys can discuss if you'd like Dom to do a handwritten letter to you.
It's clearly not.
We can do that. We don't claim to be perfect. Never have.
Thank you.
All right, well, great. Well, thank you so much, again, for coming out and joining us tonight. This is really helpful, so thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Lynn, do you want to next walk us through some of the additional documents that we put on the agenda to help facilitate this, or just give us more information for this discussion?
Sure, happy to. So since our last meeting, we.
Vinny, if I could, I wanted to see if, before we got into the discussion, if we could address the billing issue that we talked about last week. I don't know if anyone wanted to, last meeting.
You mean like the quarter four being billed at the subsequent fiscal year?
Yeah, because.
Yeah, we definitely should talk about that too, but I think, now since we're kind of engaged in this water rate, discussion, let's talk about that, and then we can also talk about the billing issue as well.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay, so from your last meeting, we went and updated some possible scenarios for you, showing different relative uses of the retained earnings if you wanted to. Before we get into that, I just wanted to just give a quick lay of the land on how we got here. And so, as we heard from Springfield Water and Sewer, they gave preliminary budget numbers, and that was what the DPW built the FY25 budget on, was those preliminary numbers. In follow-up conversations Ian and I had with the department, we took the DPW's projection, which was 1.7 million at the time, and we reduced it to 1.645. So when you voted the budget on April 1st, it was based on a preliminary number from Springfield that had been modified slightly to 1.645. 3 days later, we received the updated numbers from Springfield at a total of, before I get there. With that budget number, the increase was 9.9%. That would have been the projected water rate increase at the time based on those Springfield numbers and capital needs in the department. It was a $145,000 increase over FY23, and that equated to 9.67% increase from Springfield. That was the April 1st number. April 3rd, I actually think it was April 4th that we received the updated number from Springfield Water and Sewer, which gave us an amount of 1.933 million, which was $285,000 over the preliminary budget, or 17.3% increase from the number that they had previously supplied us, which was 433,000 over FY24's number. I'm sorry, FY23's number. So it was a 28.9% increase from FY23 to the final of FY24. So just to give you some basis there. So originally we were planning for about a 9.9% increase. Well, now we got these numbers, and we all know that that's not what we're dealing with right now. So we ran some scenarios. If you do nothing with retained earnings and you leave it alone because your balance is $248,000, you're below your policy amount of $500,000. The water rate would be $4.60 per unit, and that is a 22.42% increase. Also, following on that, we give you 4 other scenarios of using varying amounts of retained earnings: 25,000, 50,000, 100,000, or 200,000. And you can see what that does to the rate. Using 25,000, it lowers the rate to 4.57, so it takes it down 3 cents to 21.62% increase. 50,000 lowers it to 4.54, 20.81% increase. A $100,000 use of retained earnings lowers the rate to $4.48, bringing that to 19.20%. And then using $200,000 brings the rate to $4.36, which is a 15.97% increase. So we wanted to wanted to give you that information because that fully updates what we had presented earlier, but now with the full numbers that are known. I can stop there, or I can keep going on the rest of the documents.
No, if you can keep going,
Okay.
let's go through the 4 attachments.
Great.
Can I ask a question or make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, one of the things that concerns me, Lynn, is that there are, in my opinion, 3 elements potentially to the revenue side. We know the elements to the expense side. The elements to the expense side are purchasing water from the city of Springfield, the cost of us running our department, and bond or capital costs. Those are our major elements. But on the revenue side, I believe there are also three elements. One is the revenue we charge per unit, right? The second is what you spoke about here, potential use of retained earnings or the water retained earnings fund. But the third element, in my opinion, that we shouldn't overlook is the water distribution charge that provides, because of the way we've done it, a fixed amount of added revenue to the process. And the scenarios that we have now that you and Ian prepared, which show 2025 B, C, D, and E, do not reflect any changes in potentially that, what I call the water distribution income part of it. And I did some work on that, and I sent something to Mike to look at, but the fact is that it was interesting that one of the things you sent us was a comparison of other towns with fixed rate versus variable rate. Our fixed rate, and I know because I brought my water bill here, our fixed rate is $4.07 a quarter, which is about $16.28 a year, right? But there are other towns that are substantially higher, and so as we go through this discussion, I'd like us to keep in mind that the select board has the opportunity to potentially look at that also as a way of adding revenue to reduce the variable cost to of the water.
Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I agree with Mark on this one. We've talked about it a couple times since I've been here, but we really, if you look at the other rates, we are very cheap on that. And it comes back to what we're hearing from Springfield. There's fixed costs that even if you sat and you never used any water in your house, you're still hooked up. You're still, and that's unrealistic anyway, but we shouldn't completely rely on how much water you use in setting how much you pay, because just having access and being part of the community, I think we should up that and reflect our charges and our income based on that. I don't have a number in mind. Maybe Mark has run through some.
I have, and Mike, you have, it's called Water Rate Proposal 25. I sent it, what this tries to show is that and Mike's going to put this up, is that of the increase in the cost of running our department, okay, that one if you can get it. Move all the way to the, I hope that's the right one. I'll just speak to it anyway. If you move all the way to the right, Ian did a great job looking at the percentage increases of each amount. I don't know if that's the right one. Yeah, that's it. Go to the right if you can find. So Ian did a good job with the percentages, but I put down the dollars just so we could see, because I think Josh, it speaks to one of the things you said. So that if you look at it, the potential increase, 49 cents on the rate is due to the city of Springfield. And, we heard tonight, there's not a whole lot we're gonna do about it. They're gonna bill us and we're gonna pay it. But the other thing I wanted to point out is that our bonded capital is up 38 cents. Okay, now, that 38 cents is netted out with some cost down here of interest income. So it comes to about 24 cents increase if I remember the numbers, because as Ian knows, that some of the interest that we have from that borrowing is going back into this. So we're not paying the whole 38 cents. But Josh, to your point, the cost of water that's going up, yes, 49 cents of that increase is due to the city of Springfield. And it's interesting because you can see that, you know, about 11 cents that's due to our operations, because that's what this is, salary and other things. But 38 cents is due to our borrowing. And I believe that, you know, we've got some value in saying part, not all, but part of that borrowing probably ought to get paid for or paid back for through this fixed charge. Because whether you use 1 drop of water or 1 million drops of water, we had to borrow the water to put the infrastructure together. It's kind of the argument about whether, you know, the person who only uses water, you know, 1 month a year in town really should be paying their share of the capital improvements, which I think was the basis behind this fixed water rate. So to answer your question, Josh, I tried to assess what portion of our increase is due to that, so we can say, gee, does it make sense to put not all, but part of that additionally into the fixed rate?
Mark, can I respond?
Go for it.
I guess this is 2 clarifying things. So in the memo I sent to the select board on the 30th, I did note that there was the Springfield Water Commission increase, the salary and the debt service increase, and I did note the dollars per unit basis of what that increase is. In the future, would it be helpful to include that in this proposal? I'm happy to do that.
You know, for me, when we have increases, I think, you know, percentages mean one thing, but when you're looking at where the impact is, I would say yes, but I'm only one person. I mean,
Because for me, if it's easier to put in a memo where it's spelled out, I can do that, but I'm happy to include this in it as well.
Just a question for Mark, what you're talking about, which I do think, if I'm understanding it correctly, would be helpful in terms of budgeting and understanding we're going to have almost a guaranteed dollar amount. Is that what you're suggesting on that fixed number?
A portion, right.
So let's just call it $100,000 every
Right.
year. We know that we're going to have $100,000 for that line item based on all the households, because they're connected,
Right.
like Josh said, whether they're using water.
Your number's pretty good, because it's actually $130,000, so.
It's quick math, but I think I like the idea, but we're also, after speaking with Lynn, we're also going to have the study with Ty and Bond, in 2 months or so?
Yep.
So my only fear is to kind of, if we're going to try to hash this out tonight, personally, I would rather see the study from Ty and Bond, get a water rate in place, and then we make amendments to that based on what the actual professionals are saying who study this on a regular basis. Nothing against you, Mark. I think this is really, you know, good work, and I like the idea. I personally wouldn't feel comfortable tonight, you know, voting on something when we're going to have professionals that are looking at these rates and an overall plan for a long-term 5-10-year plan in a couple months that's going to be presented to us.
So to some degree, Dan, that speaks to your earlier question is, do we need to set rates now, or do we need to set rates for the last quarter? You know, because if we can wait, we can wait, but if we can't wait, we can't wait. I think it's a mistake to change rates in the middle of the fiscal year, but that's a personal opinion. You know, the problem is that, you know, I think we ought to answer one question before we get to the next. But anyway, my point was that you know, the other thing I sent Mike, and if you can put it up, because this answers Dan's question, not that we're looking for an answer, but it gives data, is I have the software that says if you want to raise money through this fixed rate, how much does it cost people if you do it? Okay, so I went through that program and put together a bunch of scenarios. If you can scroll over here to the right here, Mike, there you go. So, probably, so what, the answer is, how much do you want to raise? Okay, right now, I think we're budgeted 130,000, Ian, right?
That's correct.
Historically, we've been at about 120,000. But even if you want, and I'm not suggesting we necessarily go up here, but even if you go to $160,000, you're talking about an increase of $1.25 a quarter for that fixed rate. This is residential. These are residential people. That's the annual rate. Now, these are people with huge commercial projects. There's really only 4 or 5 projects there. But so Dan, that's part of the answer I think that you asked is how much do you want to raise? And the way this system works is you put in how much you want to raise, and it kicks out the fees. You know, and the bigger question is if you go from 130,000 to 200,000, how much do you save on the rate per unit? And the answer is about 1% per $10,000. So you save about 7% on that rate that we talked about. Instead of going up 22%, if you went all the way up here, it would go up 15%. Even if you went down to here, it would go up less. So that kind of gives you the number, Dan.
So Dan, 100,000 in revenue equals about 12.5 cents, or 12.35 cents on the rate, just for reference.
I was just throwing that number just to.
Yeah.
But,
Thank you, Mark.
Can I just kind of bring back a little bit, because we kind of got ahead of ourselves, and I think that I think Mark's proposal is something that I'd probably support, because frankly, we're hearing so much about the increase being from capital costs, and this fixed cost is basically geared towards that. But I think I'm sensing that we're all kind of recognizing that from the numbers that Ian and Lynn gave us, whereas in the past, we were kind of curious how much from fiscal year 24 might be swept into 2025. Could we have enough money to, I was personally thinking, do we have enough money to go that it's going to be over $500,000, and then maybe we can mitigate the rate, which is what we were discussing about using retained earnings to mitigate the rate. But clearly we don't have I don't think we have the money to do that. We have like $248,000. So as much as we would all love to kind of mitigate the rate, I just don't think we have the money to do that. And using it also demonstrates, this spreadsheet from Lynn and Ian, even if you took $200,000 of our $248,000, it would be a very small benefit. It would decrease for the average user. I calculated $28 from the max. So, I mean, I think that it's clear we're passing on this cost that Springfield is giving us, and whether we use some of Mark's idea to use fixed costs, which I think is perfectly fine, it's just going to, our hope of telling our constituents, explaining why it's going up, I think it's pretty clear. And I don't really think we can use retained earnings to mitigate the rate. Just to kind of get that out of the way is my personal opinion.
Thank you. Or, sorry, can we, before we kind of continue on with this, Lynn, can you just, can we go through the second and third attachments? We've kind of already gone through the fourth one now.
Sure.
But just so that we have all the information, then we can have a discussion.
Yep, so just going in order that they are on the agenda here. The last meeting, there was talk about the bond that was done in January and borrowing the $11 million. I just gave a summary here of what that $11,620,000 is for, and it's not entirely for the water main L project. 8.2 million of that money is. Then there's 175,000 for water quality flow enhancements, 870,000 for Emerson Road water mains, and 725,000 for Cooley Drive water mains. We do have right now 2.6 million in kind of unallocated funds for the water main L project. However, that does the contract we have in place right now for the construction work does not include costs for oversight or change orders. So I would be very sensitive to applying that funding elsewhere. I also want to point out, though, that we do have Magnolia and Primrose Waterline Project. It's estimated right now at about 1.479 million. I think it's probably closer to 1.6 based on some of the ad alternates that we want to have done in there. But that does not include oversight or change orders either. So there will not be this massive pot of unclaimed funds or money that was borrowed that's not being directly used for water projects. So that is a clarifying document. And then the last one that's attached here that we hadn't discussed yet is just a summary of where we ended FY '24. I mean, everyone knows we closed the fiscal year. Accounting team has been quickly gathering all of the information to see what we were going to have for turnbacks and where the rest of our accounts settled. And so I have a summary document here just showing you where we are. That gives us that end balance of $248,395 in retained earnings.
Lynn, there's also a document you sent called Water Rate Comparison.
Yeah, I think Vineeth mentioned that we pretty much went through that already when we started talking about fixed charges. But if there's questions.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we did, but Mark, if there's something, else that you want to talk about on that document, we can.
I guess I missed the fact that we went through that, what the fixed charges are in other communities.
Well, we didn't, but I think you jumped in with your water
Right. So
fixed charges thing, so I'm happy to go through it.
no, I don't know that we need to go through it, other than to note that somebody went out, you folks went out and looked at what those fixed charges in our other communities, and Long Meadow looks pretty low, to tell you the truth.
Am I correct?
Yeah,
Lynn? That's what the upshot of the document is, that it's basically, we're on the lower end when it comes to water rates and fixed, right? It has, yeah.
Right.
Yes.
That's what I think the point of it, your
So I guess-
document was, right?
Yeah, for the public who's watching, there's a fourth document that's attached that is two spreadsheets. One spreadsheet is a comparison of surrounding communities and what their water rates are, and showing Long Meadow's FY '24 rate and the proposed FY '25 rate. And then the second document is a comparison of fixed charges of the communities that have fixed charges. There certainly are some out there that do not have any fixed rates or fixed charges, but I did want you to see that because we are a community that does have those. It is clear that we are a lot lower than other communities, and I wanted you to have that to consider as you set a rate. That is another revenue source.
That was my point. Thank you.
And Josh, I'm sorry, you had your hand raised a little bit ago.
Stuff just flies right out. Oh, I was going to agree with Andrew on the retained earnings. I think the first, I talked with Lynn and Lisa and Sean and Ian about this, because I think I came in at a weird time. The water retained earnings fund had so much money because it was a drought year. And so this year and the last 2 years have been wetter, and so then we see how the projections fluctuate. And so, yes, we don't have the benefit, I think. We have to keep the money for emergencies.
Right.
If we did have some extra, sure, I would be happy to apply it, but I totally agree with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think using retained earnings in that document just kind of makes it clear that advantages of doing that are just not there. And then also to kind of talk about this fixed meter discussion. This was, I think, last year when we were setting water rates. I think I met with Lynn, and this was something that, Lynn, that you brought up, that from what you knew, that it seemed like we had a really low fixed meter rate, and that this was potentially an area that we could increase that rate and increase our revenue. And also, I think that you'd also mentioned that there is practice in other towns with their fixed meter rates where they give discounts to senior citizens and low-income households. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that's also something that, we can think about. And then Dan mentioned that Tighe & Bond is doing this water rate study. So as part of this water rate study, are they looking at potentially increasing fixed meter rates and what that would do, or is that something that we have to kind of ask them to look into as part of their study?
We can definitely bring it up to them since they're not completed yet. We have some time to make sure that we're refining the type of stuff that they will be presenting to you. So that is certainly an opportunity to have that included in the report.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be great if they could. I'd be interested in what that would look like. But, you know, it sounds like from the people that have spoken so far about using retained earnings to, you know, lower the rate increase, it seems like folks are not in support of that. Does anyone else have anything they want to, you know, say on that? Or, you know, like Andrew said, that is something that we just kind of take off the table as, you know, as a discussion.
Beneath, I'd like to say something about that, and it's not what you think I'm going to say. Is I support the fact that we don't have money to apply for the rate, but I'm concerned about the fact that we're calling it the Retained Earnings Fund, because historically it has been called the Water Stabilization Fund, the Water Rate Stabilization Fund, and I like that name because we only estimate at the beginning of the year what the water rate's going to be. Just like the city of Springfield told us that and then they true up, okay? We don't true up by charging our customers at the end of the year if they've used more water or less water than we estimated it at. If they've used more, we just take that extra revenue and we have it in the system. But when they use less, we need a source to pay that difference as the year goes on, and clearly at the end of the year. And my belief, my understanding, and my hope is that that's what the Water Stabilization Fund is for. It allows us to stabilize the fund and use the fact that you never know from year to year how much water people are going to use, because all we're doing is estimating based on a 3-year running average. And so I agree that based on the numbers that Ian's presented us, we don't have a whole lot of money to put toward stabilizing or to adjusting or reducing the rates. But we do have money, and we ought to be looking at that as a way of, at the end of the year, to make up money. Josh, you said when you got here there were millions of dollars in there, or $500,000, well over $500,000. That's because we had all these dry years and our water usage was more. And at the end of the year, we actually used to transfer money from our water operations into this Water Stabilization Fund. And you know, at one point it got so high we said, let's just use it for some capital. But I think a routine practice of using that for capital is potentially dangerous, whereas a routine practice of using it for emergency repairs and to make sure we have money to adjust the rate, if you will, true up at the end of the year, makes a whole lot more sense for us.
Yeah, I believe that we have money in the budget already for emergency repairs, right? We're not really dipping into retained earnings for emergency repairs.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, it's not enough. The amount budgeted is not enough to generally handle. It's enough to
Handle a couple of water main breaks.
have to stop the bleed, essentially, stop the leak. But the long-term repair, like we're seeing on Magnolia, far exceeds what we have in the budget.
Yeah, and beneath the argument was, years ago, we had a major water main collapse, I think on Captain Road. And the cost of that was hundreds of thousands. I mean, if the water main breaks on, you know, a normal road, it costs us some money, but we can handle it. But we've had situations where massive water main breaks have cost us well over $100,000, $150,000, and that's not in the budget, nor should it be, in my opinion.
Beneath, I just have two things.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I just have two things. So just to the point Mark was making about retained earnings helping shore up any reductions in revenues projections, in that FY24 year-end document, you'll see there that we did have a revenue shortfall. It was $375,000. We did not need retained earnings for that because we had turnbacks in the department at the close of the fiscal year, which
Lucky
helped
us.
offsets that. Yeah, but if we didn't, we would have had to use retained earnings. And then the next thing I'm about to say may be somewhat controversial, but I do feel like for the sake of transparency, it's worth putting out there. If there's a lot of desire to use funds to lower the rate, we have another enterprise fund that we subsidize with the general fund. That's the stormwater one. There will be free cash at fall town meeting that you could use to subsidize the water enterprise fund.
That's
I'm
currently
just
in the
putting it-
stormwater enterprise
I'm putting
fund?
it out there because it's an option. Do I think you should do it? No, but I want you to know that it's there.
What's the magnitude of the account, or how much funds are in there
We're
that we
still
could use?
pulling all those numbers, but it's gonna be north of 1.5 million.
And this is when we're only, I think, I don't know, Ian, the number this year is 60-something% of stormwater fees are going from our stormwater.
65%?
Right, going from stormwater fees on people's separate water bill, and 35% is still coming from operations.
Yes.
But the intent, Lynn, is that that money is going to be the source of major stormwater capital. Because unlike water and sewer, there's no ongoing cost of stormwater. Stormwater
Yes, there is.
repairs, but not the same significance as water, like operations.
No, it's probably more, actually.
Is it?
The amount of culvert failures that we're having.
Right, but that's what I meant by, I call that capital for repairing culverts, but.
Well, it's ongoing every single
Okay.
year, and it's actually only been sustained through ARPA funding. It's the only reason we've been able to get done half of what we've been able to get done in stormwater.
But we've had some major stormwater rebuilding projects in the last 5 or 8 years that we had to bond, and the intent was we shouldn't be bonding those. Those should come out of the stormwater enterprise fund.
And I think clearly the more conservative approach to not use what you suggested, which we appreciate you telling us about, to mitigate the rate would be more conservative and possibly more responsible, considering all the needs that we have and may come up, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, and, kind of going back to the discussion that Dan wanted to have about the Q4 billing issue. This is another place where, so I'm also in support of making the water rates for the fiscal year, that we should not be using, the subsequent water rate to, retroactively bill Q4. But now, if we were to apply that and do that this year, I don't know if that would create, a discrepancy that we may need to plug with retained earnings. And so I think that's also another reason why, we may need to keep, why I wouldn't want to touch retained earnings to lower rates. Andrew?
First of all, from my standpoint, I agree with you. I don't think we should be using fiscal year 25 rates retroactively for last quarter of fiscal year 24. I don't know what Ian's going to say, but I don't see how doing so could put us into a hole, because we didn't know for fiscal year 24 that Springfield rate was going to be higher, right? So, do you have any problem with? Are we going to have any issues if we just say the last quarter of fiscal year 24 is going to stay at the same rate for the rest of fiscal year 24?
So billing the first invoice of FY25 at the existing rate would project to put us at about a $209,000 decrease in expected revenues for the year if it was billed at the proposed new rate. So we would be about $209,000 in the hole off the bat.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, because you might have misspoken. So you said last quarter of fiscal year 24.
Yep.
If you build it not at the fiscal year 25 rate that we will vote on at some point,
We would be $209,000 in a deficit for 25. So we would have.
Because you planned, but how did you know what the increase would be for 25?
Based on past practice of how we set the rates, we propose the FY25 rates with the expectations that they go into effect for Q4. That's how we've done it in the past, and that's how
No,
the
it's
budget
not.
was.
It's not how we've done it in the past. There's a vote that says you can't do it in the past. Look at the June meeting minutes that the select board voted. It's a vote of the select board to use the 2024 rates for the Q4 of 2023. or excuse me, use the 2023 rates for the fourth quarter of 2023. Not authorize that. It was never authorized.
No, I disagree with that.
It was discussed, Lynn, but the vote stands. There was a prior vote. I sent you a copy of the minutes of that meeting. The vote stands. The select board vote was to not move forward.
But to clarify, you're just saying that we budgeted, we expected, we didn't know what the increase was going to be 22%, but we anticipated some increase, and that was budgeted into the year.
I asked Lisa Oskin, our DPW business manager, to run a projection to where the water rate or the water revenues would be for 25 based on if we were to stay at the current rate for quarter four and if we were to go to the new rate, the new proposed rate in quarter four. If we were to stay at the current rate in quarter four, the year-end projections show us $209,000 less than what we would be at the new rate.
Well, I certainly believe that, but
just
as far as what you budget, I understand that we're going to have less money if we charge at the lower rate from fiscal year 24. But you're not saying that we budgeted for an increase that we had no idea what it was going to be. You're just saying we're going to make less money, right? You're stating what's fairly clear, right? Like if we charge the lower rate from fiscal year 24 for the last quarter of 24, we'll have less money than if we
Yeah,
used a
just
higher rate. That's all you're saying.
Given a hypothetical, if we went back in time and changed the rate, even at this point, we would have more money. Yes.
Yeah, that's all you're saying. You're not saying we budgeted for some anticipation. Okay,
No, I'm
then
sorry.
I see no. I personally think there's no reason not to. Like, to answer your question, Vineet, because you were saying, what are some possible pitfalls to doing this? I don't see a pitfall. I think it's more honest. It's more appropriate to just, charge people the last quarter of fiscal year 24 what the rate in fiscal year 24 was. It's disingenuous and possibly, very, we can be criticized, and it would probably be correct to say, you've used the water, and we're going to charge you for a different rate than you anticipated. That's
but
higher.
there is this $209,000 that we'll have to.
No,
make that difference.
all he's saying is we're going to make that much less money. It's not been budgeted, because nobody could have predicted how much more. Ian is correctly
Is that
saying
what you're
we'll
saying?
make less money, but that's obvious.
It's what I'm saying is that on a year to actual basis, we would have 209,000 less if we were to use the FY24 rate for the fourth quarter. That's what I'm saying.
If I can just add too, that's based on what we're anticipating right now. So if we get no more rain in August or September, revenues are going to increase. There's a lot of variables, so it may not be that we're $200,000 short in revenue.
But Lynn, what he's saying is for the billing period of the fourth quarter, if you bill it at $4.80 a unit
$40.60, yeah.
$40.60 versus $3.90 something cents a unit.
76, yeah.
That difference is $209,000.
Correct.
And everybody's acknowledging that.
Yeah, you make
bill
less
it-
money if you bill at a lower rate. That's correct.
Right, I think that's was.
But Vineet, and I would share your concern, it's not like we budgeted for an increase that we hoped for, and now we're in the hole. I don't think that's correct. I think, yeah.
Yeah. Josh?
Yeah, I mean, to me, going back, it's a non-starter, because I honestly, I know we've talked about this in the past, I don't think it's going to change behavior, having a higher rate. I think people are going to do what they do. But that doesn't matter, because I don't think none of us could say for certainty, if the rate was higher in the fourth quarter, people would have acted differently. And just based on that, to me, that's enough. I think Andrew mentioned dishonest. Yes, I think that's dishonest. It's disingenuous to go back. Even if if anything happened in the past, I don't think it matters, because this is such a great increase that I don't think we can go back. But this is why I think, and I know we can't fix this tonight, but we need to change our calendar a bit and set a rate earlier, because having the fiscal year and the Springfield Water and Sewer fiscal year coincide leads to things like this year, where we just are, that with the true up one thing, but we have already budgeted for a rate that is now, we know, wildly off. So that's, to the extent we can move forward. Again, not gonna be fixed tonight. I think the way to take some steps tonight is to have a fixed rate for households, but I think it's a non-starter to go back to and change fourth quarter.
Vinny?
Yeah, go ahead.
So that's why I kind of wanted to jump in before we start talking about the rates, because I tend to agree with, I think, most of the members here, and I do appreciate Josh's comments. I had prepared a motion actually to go back, and I think that we should be charging the residents the rate at which we set. I do agree with Josh's points in terms of, I don't think it would really change the, in terms of how people might act with whether they're using more water or not. Legally, I'm not even sure if we could charge someone a rate that is the FY25 rate for FY24. So that just doesn't sit well with me. I think we need to actually fix it tonight and put a motion forward, which I have prepared to fix the dilemma that we're kind of in here. So personally, I think we need to go back and make sure that we're billing the ratepayers the rate at which when they consume the water in Q4, which was $3.76. So I had a motion that I wanted to propose to fix that, but again, I do understand what Josh's point is in terms of, folks, whether they're going to water their lawn less or more, they're going to do what they want to do. So I'd like to put a motion forward to rectify the issue. So I move to direct the Department of Public Works to bill the water rates for all 4 quarters at the rates set for the fiscal year in which the water was consumed, which in this case was the rate of $3.76.
And sewer.
I'll second the motion.
All right. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'll speak in support of the motion, and I think my biggest reason is because the fiscal 2025 rate was built based on an additional 49 cents per unit being charged by the Springfield Water and Sewer Department, but yet the water consumed in the fourth quarter was actually billed by the Springfield Water and Sewer Commission at the lower rate. Because we paid for the water at a lower rate, we ought to bill for that water at the lower rate, and that's why I support this motion.
It sounds like we're all pretty much philosophically on the same page, and I think that it makes sense.
All right. Nothing else, Mike?
Mr. Hamabathy?
Yes.
Mr. Gold?
Yes.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
Mr. Zwerko?
Yes.
Mr. Levine?
Yes.
Okay. So now we do have to set the rate still. And anyone have anything that they want to say about that or make a motion?
So the question is, do we need to set the rate? I mean, and I only say that, not that I'm trying to pass this off. Believe me, we've talked about it for an hour and a half already. But Dan pointed out that we've got a water study coming. The bill for the amount for the current July, August, and September quarter won't be out until, just after that, right? And so the question is, how, and I also agree that It's not likely to change a lot of people's behavior, but we can certainly make it known, and Sarah's here and she'll probably will make it known, that the rates are going up pretty substantially, whether they're going up 22% or 21% or something like that. So do we need to set the rates?
Can I comment real quick? So it seems clear that we're all agreeing that the rate overall has to meet this requirement of $4.60. What the tie and bond might help us with, as Dan alluded to, is maybe it'll help us know what the fixed rate component of that. First, we need to kind of have a consensus that we want to increase the fixed rate, which will frankly mitigate the water rate. But we could also, if we put Mark's spreadsheet up there, just, it propose, for example, we'll make it so that we'll increase the fixed rate enough so that $200,000 effectively comes off the water rate production, But if it's true that we don't have to do it, I feel like we have enough information to do it, to set the rate personally, but Lynn, do we have to?
So, yeah, Lynn or Ian.
Now that we've set Q4 from last year?
What's the timeline here? How long can we wait and to set the rate? And also, when is the tie and bond study going to be completed?
So let me first address the billing cycle. So first quarter of 25 will go out in November. That's when the bill is mailed. It closes the end of September. October is when they get the bills ready. It goes out in the mail. That schedule is available on the DPW website.
But
for
they need
all
the rate
quarters.
before November, right?
They need the rate by mid-October at the latest,
Right.
yes.
Okay.
In terms of when the tie and bond study is going to be presented to you, so not just completed, but actually presented to you. Your next meeting is August 12th. I do not believe we will have it for that meeting. It's possible we'll have it for September 3rd, but it's potentially more likely it might be mid-September. As soon as it's done and it's been vetted by staff and we can get tie and bond here, we'll do that. I can't commit that it will be ready by August 12th. I think that's too soon.
But I would put to the group, what information would they give us and how would it influence us, right? We kind of know what the target rate has to be. The consumer is paying almost the same amount, basically, depending on if you're, a 4-inch versus a 1-inch. But the consumer is going to be paying, whether it's in the form of an increased rate or an increased fixed cost, it's really going to be quite similar. And it's going to be it could be relatively arbitrary unless we make some sort of proportional scheme at that, hey, tie and bond telling us we have these hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars of capital costs, but how does one translate that into how much our fixed rate should be? It's completely arbitrary.
Yeah, but they could also come back to us and say, here's an option for a tiered rate, and that's something we're not talking about, and I'm not saying that.
Sure.
So they're going to come back to us and
we
give us different options.
And we have that option available to us now as well. So,
Vineet, if I could, Dan, you took the words out of my mouth. There's a lot of things the tie and bond can come back with, but frankly, if it's something other than what we have, which is a fixed plus variable rate, we're not going to be, I don't imagine how we're going to be able to evaluate it and act on it within the time period. I think that, as I listen to Andrews, I'm thinking, let's set a rate now or shortly thereafter. That gives us plenty of time to really digest tie and bond study and change the time frame and implement it if we want to for the next year. But I can't imagine we'd get a study in August and say by September 15th, because it would need to be we've talked about tiered rates and incentive rates and all that kind of stuff, and all that stuff takes a lot to work through, and I'm just based on his history, it's not going to happen in 2 weeks or 4 weeks. So I'd support trying to set a rate.
Mark, since you've spent the most time thinking about this as you made that spreadsheet, if we set the rate tonight, what would you think? What would you propose the fixed rate would be? It's how much money would we try to raise?
I went through that. I think it ought to be, right now we're at 130, we've been at 120, Ian proposed 130. I'm saying if we went to $160,000 or something like that, that it's a step, but not a significant increase for people, but it represents a change for us. It's going to make a change from 22% down to 18% or something. It's still an increase, and when I look at the numbers, it's because the city of Springfield is increasing our water rates, and we've got that. But like I said, I certainly wouldn't take our fixed rate up to $200,000 or $300,000. I think that's more than people could take, A, and B, I think we'd want to really take a look at how that affected every single customer, which is what we did when we originally looked at this. We looked at every just as Ian did way before. He looked at the low users and the middle users and the high users. But to go from $130,000 to $160,000 or even $170,000 isn't the end of the world.
I think that's rather modest, frankly.
It is.
So
it is. It's very modest.
I'd have no objection to that.
How much of an increase is that per household?
So, hold on.
I know it was pretty modest from your sheet. I just don't know what it was.
So it's going to be...
If we went from where we are now, which is 407, raises $120,000, okay, it would be $5 on a quarterly basis, $5.36. It would be a dollar and a quarter more per quarter. That would raise $160,000.
I think if anything else, that is good precedent for us to set that we're moving the needle a little bit. Because from what we heard tonight, Springfield is they're going to be hitting us with fees. I know that maybe this year was a 1-year huge increase, but it's not going to stop. And I think this is a good precedent to set.
If you put up the others spreadsheet, people can see the numbers. Yeah, that one meter size. So if you look at the part in the pink there, you can see that if you go to, we're at 130. That's what Ian has proposed. What is?
I just got to share it.
I just got to share it so Vineeth can see it.
Okay. So Ian's proposed 130. We went to 160. Again, we're actually at 407 because of rounding. We're not at 402. The 536 it's about $1.25 per quarter, which is, $4 or $5 a year. I get it. Do we want to go higher? I don't know.
I would go higher, but I am very happy to go 160.
I just put this stuff together so people can understand, and again, every $10,000 more we raise is up 1% lower in the water rate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is a great idea.
So, Vineeth?
Yeah, go ahead.
So you had brought up the point on discounts or potential discounts for seniors. This was something that I had met with Lynn with today regarding. There's other towns in the Commonwealth that currently you can take a fixed rate. So I think what Mark's talking about here, we can apply a discount to based on the assessor's office that we have, and you can have veterans, someone who has a disability, senior citizens, and we can apply a discount to a fixed rate within the water rate.
But it'd be $5.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's not like we're talking a meaningful amount. But you're right.
But if there's anything that we can do to help our seniors or veterans, I think we should try to.
That's fine, Dan.
Try to do so. I just.
If we get 500 people who need $5, that's $2,500.
But I bring that up because if we're talking about a fixed rate,
right? Okay, I hear you.
We should maybe bake something into the number that makes sense while still helping other people out as well.
I mean, I think that part of the discussion is admirable, but we could always do that later. I mean, that's a big discussion. I mean, I think it's a modest amount of money, as Mark was pointing out. But I think that's a larger discussion that we could always apply later and think about.
Yeah, if we were at Westfield or Agawam fixed rates, that's that's
much higher.
300 plus.
Right, right.
Then, yeah, I think that's a great idea. It seems not worth working it through at $5.36 a quarter, if that's what we're going with. But I think that's, overall, to give us some capacity to do that, I think it's a great idea.
I'm happy with Mark's proposal. I was kind of inclined along with Josh that I think that's a very modest increase. I would be okay to go a little higher, but I do think that it's a new thing and it's a precedent setting, and so I'm fine with either.
Just for a comment, our water fixed rate is 407, our sewer fixed rate is 857. No.
It's very modest.
No political comment about just the factual, that's the difference, so.
Do we know if we do 160, say, the 536 per quarter, do we know what our rate would be?
Yes, so that's the other spreadsheet that I have Mike up there, but the answer is that it's you can actually do this in real time. So if you go to the right, Mike, but what you want to do is put, instead of this minus 140, put minus 160. These other numbers, it's not going to take it. Well, yeah. So if you go down the bottom, it'll show you what the rate actually goes. It goes to something like that.
3 cents off?
Yeah, it's very.
Because I told you, because it's only $30,000 more, so it's 3 cents. It's from 130 to 160.
Would it make more sense for us to just, I hate to keep pushing this out, but if we were to move this to our next meeting and we have some scenarios and take a look at some options? I mean, because we're just hearing about these options tonight, which are good options. I just think I'd like to.
Yeah, I mean, we can put together, I mean, the nice thing about this spreadsheet, you can put in.
Yeah, you can do it right now.
Minus 160, you can put in minus whatever you want to. And then you can go back to the other spreadsheet and say, what does that mean to your fixed rate?
Mark, when did you said that you didn't want to go up to 200 or something? Why did you say that? Was there something?
Just emotionally. I mean, if that's the sense of the group, you go to minus 200.
I mean, I think it's one or the other. It's essentially like the consumer is paying increased rate or increased fixed costs. So
I mean,
to me, it's
there are people out, and
except for the few people with the.
Well, no, I over time, since Richard Foster and I did this a long time, I've looked at all 5,400 water bills in this community, okay? There are people out there who use very little water. Like they use 6 or 8 units of water per quarter, something like that, or even less. For them, they're paying, pick 6 units a quarter, 24 units times 24 times $4. They're paying $80 in their variable cost. You don't want to charge them $25 in their fixed cost. Now there aren't a lot of people like that, but there are some people like that.
Because of the proportionality?
Yeah.
Because frankly, okay.
No,
it's still a small number, $25
It's still a small number, and there are a lot of people in town, and the impetus behind this fixed rate was that people who are snowbirds, people who don't use water a lot, still ought to be paying their share of the capital costs.
Mm-hmm.
That was the impetus of it. But if we want to go to 200, if that's the sense of the group to go to 200,000, it can be done, and we've got the numbers here. We can tell you.
I would
what
be in favor of that.
Just plug that in, Mike.
Yeah, put in 200,000. I mean, the rate's going to be like 20.
454.
It's not going to be a huge.
Right.
I mean, we're splitting
4 cents.
hairs. It's
450. It went down 5 cents.
Yeah.
Right.
This is more of a gesture, but I still consider it just a modest gesture, frankly. But it's.
Yeah, if you
I
look
think
at the
this
other
is
fixed
fine.
rates, I agree. I would move that we set the fiscal year 2025 water rate at $4.52 per unit, and with raising a base rate distribution charge based on meters at $200,000.
Second. Did you say that, Brock? Is it better to say what the fixed rate would be, though?
But
No.
we can't do it
Yes.
because
You
it's
can't do
different
that.
meter types.
Okay.
Yeah, and how?
You're right.
Who's telling us how we're breaking that out? All you've said is $200,000 in revenue, and there's 6 different meter types.
You're right, Lynn. Historically, I'll tell you the basis behind that other spreadsheet, and the basis behind the other spreadsheet is it's geeky, but it's the cross-sectional diameter of the pipe that you use, figuring that the bigger the pipe, the more water you use, and therefore, or you're capable of
No,
using.
I completely understand that. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm pretty irritated. It's 10:15. This is the first I've seen this, and now we're trying to figure out a water rate with fixed charges. I mean, I just think this is the wrong way to go about it.
And I don't necessarily disagree, Lynn. My question is, how do I go about it? And I had this discussion with Mike today, is open meeting laws don't allow me to send this to people and say, here's what I think we should do.
No,
in
we could have
advance of
sent
the
it to
meeting.
staff. We could have run some of this numbers for you.
Well, I think it's clear that the sentiment. So what do you think about having something for our next meeting?
For the water
With
rate or
regard,
for the
well,
fixed
Mark
charges?
has clearly done all this work. Could he give it to Ian, and so that everyone's comfortable with the change?
I mean, we have time. We can wait. You can set the rate August 12th.
All right, so
I mean, I'm just wondering, what the impasse right now is how to describe mathematically what we want to accomplish, because there's different size meter. Like, the fixed cost, is the question what the fixed cost should be per consumer base, but it's variable because everyone has different pipe sizes, capacity size?
Correct.
That's the issue.
There's different, the majority, the bulk of them, 4,300 or whatever the quick math is on that, are the $4.07 a quarter.
So at present, is it just determined, yeah, let's see what it is this year.
The intent was that all residential, because if you go to the left, there's some residents with a half-inch meter, some with a three-quarter-inch meter, some whatever. But the intent was that these residential meters that are less than an inch, 4,941 of them all pay the same rate. It's kind of like what we did with the stormwater system. Every house is the same stormwater fee. So we did the same thing. Everything else, it's based on the cross-sectional area of the meter. I mean,
So I don't understand, so,
because what you're not seeing is all the stuff to the left that does all the hard work, the calculations. But what that's just showing is, you know, and frankly, this is dynamic enough, and I've shared it with Ian in the past, that, you know, the DPW can go in and say, no, there's really 4,938 meters this size and really 12 meters this size. They can change all that stuff and the number will calculate. And in fact, when Ian proposed $130,000 instead of 120, I presume this is how you were going to get that.
That's correct.
Correct? So whether we were our old 120 or the 130 or we go to 200,000, this or some very close approximation to this was going to be the system that was used.
Okay, so the 6 different meter charges are on the spreadsheet.
Because there's
You
6
see that,
different
right?
size meters.
Yeah.
Josh has his hand up.
Yeah.
Josh has his hand up. Go ahead, Josh.
Beneath, in the interest of closing, us going home at some point, why don't we tell, Sarah can put in the reminder that the water rates are going to be at least $4.66 per unit. Sorry, $4.60 per unit. We are attempting to, we are contemplating lowering that with fixed costs, but we have to set it later after we run through scenarios. But that I didn't want us to walk out of here with people not knowing any idea what the rates are going to be. But it's going to be at least that, and it's due to Springfield water costs that we cannot affect. We were told very strongly we cannot affect that. So we know what the top rate will be, but we're going to, and that's what the costs are going to be, either way.
But it will be split into components of, right?
Right.
It's not entirely semantically correct to say, like, the rate will be $4.60, but it will be, I don't know how do you say it better, but that's how much it needs to be raised, essentially.
That's
so.
the most, if we do nothing and just
I see.
split it out, that's what our initial rate's going to be, $4.66. Or I keep saying that, $4.60.
$4.60.
We will hopefully lower it with some fixed rates, but we need to run the scenarios, and it's very late.
Yeah, I like that, Josh.
That's fine.
I think that's right. I didn't know that we can make motions for what goes in the reminder, though. So that's cool.
I'm sure you'll see it
all right.
accurately.
So is everybody comfortable then with moving on?
Okay.
And
Do
we'll
we have to
revisit this at our next
formally
meeting?
withdraw Josh's motion?
There was no action taken on it. I do withdraw it, though, very strongly.
Can I second?
All right. So let's move on to the Woolworth Street tree appeal. This was something that we talked about, and then I think the last meeting it didn't make the agenda, so I wanted to make sure that we circled back to this conversation. Where we left off on this conversation was that there was one tree that we were contemplating on whether it should be removed or not. DPW said that it did need to be removed in order to put the curb and to repave that street. But it was a perfectly healthy tree, so there was some discussion about it. From thinking about it further, and especially I think with the storms where Woolworth was basically was flooded last month, I think that kind of clarified my thinking on this a little bit more, and made me think that we should remove this tree so that the curbing can go in and the street can be repaved. But obviously want to hear from all of you about it as well. Anyone want to add? Yeah, Mark?
After the last meeting, I gave this some thought, and I seem to recall that the argument was putting in the curb is going to kill the tree anyway, essentially, right? And my question is, what if for that area of the street, instead of putting in a granite curb, we put in a amosite berm, which requires no digging at all? It still will have the barrier, it'll still direct the water the way we want to, but it doesn't dig around the tree. So we're not gonna dig up those roots. And if we have to do 10 feet on either side of the tree, because it's got a big root ball, then we'll do that. And you know what? 10 or 15 years from now, when that tree dies of a great natural death, we ought to come back to the town and say, okay, let's spend the money and put in the granite berm, the granite curb.
This isn't a granite berm, though, I don't think.
No. Sean's got a really good answer for this.
It's not granite.
Yeah, Sean.
I'll make it more complicated. It's not granite, it's asphalt. The milling itself to pave the road is gonna damage the tree. Automatically, we're gonna damage this tree, whether we put berm in or not. If we do put berm in, we can't really bend around the tree because you're gonna create a hazard for the people plowing, and it's gonna be sort of a traffic hazard. Cars are gonna have a problem seeing it because it is gonna be asphalt. If we put the asphalt berm in, it will help the flooding. Unfortunately, it won't stop the flooding because the backup is actually a Bliss, because the main line that collects the stormwater there is undersized, as well as what's on Woolworth. So if we put the berm in, it'll help, but it won't stop the flooding because we're undersized. We cannot put the berm in. We're going to upgrade the existing stormwater system, and it'll remain as it is. It's not the end of the world, but the flooding won't be fixed. It's not going to be fixed either way, though. But I don't think that it's an appropriate application with the berm you're describing to veer off. Either I would suggest either do the berm or don't do the berm.
Thanks, Sean. Josh?
Yeah, Beneath, I agree with you. I think since our last meeting on this, there's been two awful floods. My friend Cameron lives there. She sends me pictures. It's bad. I talked to Sean about it. We're not going to fix it, but anything other than removing this tree, and unfortunately, it's not going to help. The tree, and I really hate to say it, it needs to come down to help out that street. There are beautiful trees next to it, beautiful trees right behind it. We're not losing the cover completely. but it's an odd placement, but this street needs to be, we need to take steps to do it. And there's no real way that's helpful that allows the tree to stay.
Dan?
Yeah, I had met with some of the residents on that street, went there when there was one of the recent rainfalls, and I literally had to turn around. And I jokingly said, let's call it Lake Woolworth. But what I don't want to have happen is another, I know it's a sore subject, the speed bump, where we leave something there and then we damage a plow, someone gets injured, and now the town's responsible. But I do want to make sure that we put proper tree cover to, when we do the replacement. I don't know if that's something you could just touch on, what would go there as a replacement.
So they would need to put in a request to the neighborhood for new trees. We could plant something, but I would just caution, if there's any upgrades made to that road to accommodate any future pedestrian travel for a new school, we need to consider that as well. So it's not ideal timing doing this paving right now with the long-term construction that's coming. Ideally, if I was asked, I would want to have pedestrian accommodations added if there is more than just the one sidewalk, be it bike paths or a second sidewalk. But we're not there. So I just want to say, if we do put trees back in there, we need to consider the long-term, what's going to happen to that road before we just go in willy-nilly and plant trees. But we can make accommodations, and next year come back in and do some plantings if there is a decision made about that school and the long-term sort of future of what that will be.
What kind of motion do we have here? Do we need to deny the appeal or grant the appeal, deny the objection?
Tree hearing ruling was to deny the appeal or to deny the...
So you guys technically don't have to rule, just so you know, but you can go through the motions. I am allowed to just cut the tree as a road widening project. This was exempt from the hearing, but we put it forward anyway just to make sure that it was public and you guys can make a decision. But however you want to phrase it. Sorry, I don't think that was helpful.
All right, so we actually don't need to make a motion if we want to just let the tree, or if we want to allow you all to cut down the tree, right? That's what I'm hearing. Okay. Does anyone have anything that they want to add to this conversation? Okay. Well, thank you, Sean, for joining us. And I think since no one's making a motion, otherwise, it looks like we're going to allow DPW to take down the tree and put in the curb there. So, all right, let's move on. Next agenda item is the ratification of our collective bargaining agreement with the Long Meadow Clerical Union. Lynn, do you want to tee this one up?
Yes, thank you. So this agenda item relates directly to the classification and compensation plan that wrapped up. And this tonight's adoption of an MOU or ratification of an MOU relates directly to those discussions to implement the wage and classification study with the clerical union. There was very minor negotiations that took place. It was relatively straightforward, and ratification of this agreement will allow them an FY24 COLA along with placement on the new classification and compensation scale.
Great, thank you. Any discussion on this? All right. So obviously we'll need to do a motion here, so I will entertain a motion. Someone has one?
I move that we ratify the collective bargaining agreement with the Town of Long Meadow Clerical Union, contingent on the union agreeing.
Yes.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All right, Mike?
Mr. Hamabathy?
Yes.
Mr. Gold?
Yes.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
Mr. Zwerko?
Yes.
Mr. Levine?
Yes.
All right, great. Next is the GHG emissions reduction scoping. Received a memo on this from Corinne. Is Corinne here to talk about it? I think some folks from the Energy and Sustainability Committee were gonna join us. I think I see Doug over there.
Corinne is also here. I'm moving Corinne now.
May I make a suggestion?
I have to introduce myself? Doug Taylor, Northfield Road, Long Meadow, Energy and Sustainability Committee. Rather than talk about this tonight, I'd like to suggest an offline meeting with Andrea from our committee, who's given up on this meeting, Corinne, Vineeth, myself, maybe Mimi Kaplan from PVPC. The Energy and Sustainability Committee is in favor of doing what has been proposed, but would like to talk about how it gets done, particularly the first meeting. So rather than take time tonight, I'd like to suggest that offline meeting, and then we can bring something summarized to next select board meeting if there's time.
Well, I appreciate that, Doug. I do think that this item was on the agenda, and we should, go over it for the public's knowledge and to make sure that folks know what's going on here. So, Corinne, could you give us just an overview of this memo?
Yeah. So the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission was awarded a grant from the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources, DOER, to help several communities in our region develop scopes for greenhouse gas emission reduction plans. So I just want to be very clear, this project will not develop a greenhouse gas emission reduction plan for the town, but will help the town determine what should go into a greenhouse gas emission reduction plan for Long Meadow, and then help kickstart some community engagement around that as well. So essentially, I think we will end up with something along the lines of like a table of contents. But not anything that is substantially a climate action plan or greenhouse gas emissions reduction plan. So Long Meadow was one of several communities that told the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission that if they were awarded this grant, we would like to receive free technical assistance to help us develop such a scope. It's following on the heels of our greenhouse gas emissions inventory, which Pioneer Valley Planning Commission and UMass Clean Energy Center completed for the town last year. So we already have that. And essentially, the rest of the memo goes ahead and suggests a time frame for completing this project, given that it has to be completed by May 2025. We are running a little bit tight on that time frame with Mimi Kaplan's time. So the proposed timeline that I put in that memo, which is attached to the agenda for anybody who's interested in this and hasn't already seen it, has already been vetted with Mimi, and it's Lynn's and my recommendation to the select board that the select board task this to the Energy and Sustainability Committee, given that your time is, you have meetings that go on for 3.5 hours, and fitting this in before may make it more difficult for you. But we also acknowledge that you should, given that you are the body that the public pays the most attention to, you should be kept up to date throughout the whole process. So whether you want to do that as joint meetings, or you want to have one joint meeting at the beginning and a joint meeting at the end, or just a joint meeting at the beginning and then regular reports from the Energy and Sustainability Committee, is entirely up to you. But that's the recommendation that we came up with preliminarily. And I will say that is pretty much the extent of information I have about this grant at this time. We would like to encourage the Select Board and the Energy and Sustainability Committee to direct more questions about the grant itself and the actual outcomes of the projects and requirement from DOER to Mimi Kaplan, the consultant from PVPC, if and when we meet with her.
Okay, great, thank you. So, as Doug proposed, would this make sense then to have, chair the Energy Sustainability Committee, and maybe myself, you, Lynn, to kind of see what or talk further about whether a joint meeting would make sense or something pared down?
I don't know that. So I have several thoughts about this, no definitive suggestions. But first is that the way that we work with Pioneer Valley Planning Commission when we have technical assistance like this is they have a set number of hours that are funded through this work. So any meetings that we have with Mimi Kaplan outside of actually getting the work done is fewer hours that she will then be spending on our final product. So that's just something to always be aware of when we're suggesting informational meetings and things like that. It's not the right answer, yes or no, to do it, but we have limited hours with her, and so it's really up to you if you want to spend, an hour of her time for the meeting and like half an hour prep and half an hour for notes or something on the other end to, to get that done. I do not know that I would be happy to attend such a meeting. I don't know that I would necessarily add value. This is something that, Lynn and I discussed this, and given this is also something that's addressed in the memo, but at first we were not sure if the greenhouse gas emissions reduction plan was specifically to cover emissions generated by municipal operations, like town, with a capital T operations, or if they were community-wide greenhouse gas emissions, which includes residents and their own private vehicles, their own private homes, et cetera. It's the latter, and so given that this is going to be a scope for a plan that will address residential behavior, like to a relatively minute level, it's our opinion that this more squarely belongs with the select board and the appointed committees by the select board who represent Long Meadow residents than it does in the hands of any town department where we only have control really of what our internal staff policies are, or like our personal, like municipal fleet policies are. So for those reasons, that really influenced our recommendation to you that you take this into your hand and then delegate it to the Energy and Sustainability Committee. So again, while I would be happy to attend any informational meeting, I think this is really a project that belongs in the hands of appointed and elected Long Meadow officials rather than staff. How do I answer that?
So as part of the schedule, like the first proposed meeting, the joint meeting on August 12th that's proposed, Ms. Kaplan will be attending that meeting?
Yes. So rather than having her spend her time to come here, for this, we suggested that the first meeting she attend really be a robust meeting. So that would be, in this recommendation, joint meeting, Energy and Sustainability Committee and Select Board. You could decide, you being the select board could decide to vote then to delegate it to the Energy and Sustainability Committee, maybe after you learn more from her, or you could vote tonight, just, you have an understanding of what your own capacity is. And in which case you could decide whether you want that first meeting to be a joint meeting, or maybe you just hand it over to the Energy and Sustainability Committee and sort of give them directions as to a timeline or something like that. That would be up to you. And I can update her after this meeting, as to what to expect for that first meeting, should you, agree to have it on that date.
Okay, great, thank you. Any thoughts from the rest of the select board? Doug, do you have a sense of what, have you and Andrea talked about this? Folks from the Energy and Sustainability Committee talked about this, about how to best move forward?
Not a whole lot. That's why.
They received
that's why
information. The Energy and Sustainability Committee, or Andrea sent, and I don't know when she sent it to the rest of the committee, but received the memo on the same day that I sent it to you, the select board. So I don't believe that they've had a meeting since that time.
Okay, great. Doug, do you know when the next meeting is?
Hasn't been scheduled yet, but it's supposed to be in the next, I think, early August, for energy and sustainability anyways.
Yeah, okay.
But it's partly why I suggested this other offline meeting, just to get going on this project.
Yeah, Lynn, do you have any thoughts on how to best proceed here?
Well, as Corinne laid out in the memo, I think we were planning on that schedule, but if you're looking to modify it, I think I would defer to what Corinne suggests. She's been working directly on this.
Okay. Yeah, I think the one other option we would have is if the Energy and Sustainability Committee is going to meet before August 12th, to, see if they have some, process that they would want to follow. But other than that, this looks good to me to have this kind of initial meeting so that the select board can be apprised of, of this project. We don't need to take any kind of vote or anything on this, right?
No.
Yeah, no, I mean, we have the award, so to speak, so you could vote tonight if you wanted to delegate it to the Energy and Sustainability Committee, but like we said, it might make more sense to have that conversation with Mimi in a public meeting, and then from there determine what makes the most sense.
Okay, all right, that sounds good to me. Anyone else have anything they want to add? If not, okay. Well, thank you, Corinne, for joining us. Sorry for keeping you up here, but thanks. And thanks, Doug, too, for coming by. Appreciate it. And we can move on to the next agenda item, which is just a quick update on school committee and housing authority vacancies. So for the housing authority, we did not have any candidates on the ballot in our June election. No candidate hit the threshold, no write-in candidate hit the threshold to capture the seat. So we are going to be working with the Housing Authority on setting out a process to fill that vacancy. So I just want to provide that update. And then with the school committee, Mary Keene won the June 11th election, but has not, accepted the position and did not take the oath of office for the position. So it's created a vacancy on the school committee. We obviously wish Mary all the best and thank her for her years of service on the school committee. But we will be working with the school committee to set out a process to fill that vacancy. So at our next meeting on August 12th, we will be providing a timeline and schedule of what that process will look like, and hopefully for the housing authority vacancy as well.
Beneath, have you?
And then
I shared with Mike the policies and procedures that the school committee and the select board have accepted and used in the past for filling the school committee vacancies, so you don't need to reconstruct those.
So we've got all that. It's just about setting up the schedule in a way that makes sense. So we'll provide that update in our August meeting.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, so next up on the agenda is a street closure application. So I will entertain a motion to approve the application to close Normandy Road at Commerce Street and East Greenwich Road at Park Drive for a block party to be held on September 8th, 2024 with a rain date of September 15th, 2024 from 4 to 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, Mike?
Excuse me, Mr. Hemavathy?
Yes.
Mr. Gold?
Yes.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
Mr. Zwerko?
Yes.
Mr. Levine?
Yes.
All right, great. And I will also entertain a motion for a one-day liquor license application from the Long Meadow Adult Center Community Fund for 2 one-day liquor license applications for events to be held on August 1st and August 29th from 5 to 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, Mike?
Mr. Hemavathy?
Yes.
Mr. Gold?
No.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
Mr. Zwerko?
Yes.
Mr. Levine?
Yes.
All right, and anyone want to make any comments about correspondence? All right, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Mike?
Mr. Hemavathy?
Yes.
Mr. Gold?
Yes.
Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
Mr. Zwerko?
Yes.
Mr. Levine?
Yes.
All right, thank you everyone for joining us, and have a good night.